This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Alpha leads by 3 with a 16th out. Then Spite City and How Do I Win? And Alpha has won the Withers as the big favorite here.
The leader is Smarty Jones. 2 down automatic second. Pro Prado to the outside. They drive for the wire. Smarty Jones leads it. Here's 2 down automatic. Pro Prado. Smarty Jones continues undefeated, wins the Southwest by 3/4.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Now with an eighth of a mile to go. Holy Bull has led every step of the way and has the commanding 4.5 down 5-length lead. The battle will be for second. Halo's image ride the rails and go for Gin. A dramatic performance this afternoon by Holy Bull.
Barbaro reaches for the final furlong, and Barbaro leads by a length and a half. Great Point is charging from the back of the pack. Barbaro is in front. Great Point tries to pass them all, but he can't pass Barbaro. The Holy Bull Stakes goes to Barbaro.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Good morning once again, everyone. Welcome to the show that launched a network. It is the Equine Forum. It is all presented by TwinSpires and all right here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, saying welcome to the program. As always, you are listening to Sirius on Sirius 162, XM 207, our affiliates in Lexington, Louisville, and across the country, and streaming worldwide and podcast on our website, horseracingradio.net, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Well, the storyline today, listen, I'm not a meteorologist, but I'm going to spend a little time talking about the weather because it has been a significant storyline over the past couple of weeks in racing, certainly today, where you take a look at what's happening around the country. NYRA has canceled the Saturday-Sunday programs at Aqueduct, which means that the 4 stakes initially slated for today will now be brought back on Friday, this coming Friday, February 6th. And those include the Wither Stakes, which is a points qualifier for the Kentucky Derby, the Toboggan, the Ruthless, and the Lady Stakes. Oaklawn had to postpone their races this weekend. Southwest, the Southwest Stakes, another points race for the Kentucky Derby, now going to be run on Friday as well. And then Laurel Park announcing yesterday that they have postponed the Saturday-Sunday cards. And those programs will be brought back on Wednesday and Thursday. So the race is scheduled for today, which is highlighted by the $100,000 spectacular bid stakes for the 3-year-olds and the extra heat stakes, which is for the 3-year-old fillies. Those have all been moved to Wednesday. Sunday's card, tomorrow's card, going to be shifted to Thursday. All of this because of the frigid temperatures just hammering the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic areas, and even into the Midwest. Gary Capuano has 3 horses entered in that spectacular bid stakes at Laurel. You're going to hear from him when he joins me at 8:15 Eastern. Again, those races postponed to Wednesday. So I'll talk to him about the 3 horses, but about how this impacts his road to the Kentucky Derby, if indeed these horses are even on the Kentucky Derby trail. Let's face it, this is a 7-furlong race. Maybe these horses are pointed more toward the Preakness. Maybe not. But I'll talk to Gary about that coming up in just a few minutes. The weather at Gulfstream Park is significantly better by comparison, but certainly not by South Florida standards. The temperatures today at Gulfstream, low 60s. There is some rain in the area early this afternoon. And you have wind gusts up to about 25 miles per hour by the time the Holy Bull Stakes is run at 5:45 Eastern. So even Gulfstream feeling the impact of this brutal cold that is really has a grip on the entire United States right now, at least the eastern half. You're going to hear from Don Little Jr. of Centennial Farms. He has nearly for Todd Pletcher at 9 o'clock Eastern. And then you're going to hear from Riley Mott, who will send out Pin Oak Studs Incredible at 9:20 Eastern. So I'll cover the Holy Bull from a couple of angles for you there. And that's a really good field, isn't it? I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. But here's your poll question this morning. It involves what we're seeing across the country with all of these postponements and cancellations and shift in scheduling. If you owned a legitimate Kentucky Derby prospect, would you prep them in a cold weather climate? Two ways to go here. Never or yes, I would take my chances. If you owned a legitimate Kentucky Derby prospect, would you prep them in a cold weather climate? I don't think I would. I don't think I'd take my chance. Now, there's two sides to this argument. Number one, you're likely facing, in theory, an easier path, at least in terms of the competition that you're going to be facing. The horses that campaign most of the time in New York, maybe in Laurel, for example, not regarded to be at the same level quite often as horses who are based in South Florida, who are based at Santa Anita. Even Oaklawn and Fairgrounds, the same thing. So you have that going for you. But then you also have to deal with all of these delays. And it's not just the shift in the racing, but it's the cancellations in training because of the frigid temperatures and the severe weather. So all of those things impact your road. And we always hear the saying that you don't want to have a straw in your path if you're trying to get to the Kentucky Derby. Well, this is a pretty big straw. And when Gary joins me in a few minutes, Gary Capuano, I'm going to ask him how significant this is. You say, okay, well, it's only 6 days. Well, it's only 6 days, but if you're trying to make your next race on schedule, that 6 days can be significant. Dale and Tim will join me right around 10:30 Eastern, final segment of today's show. And Dale has had to deal with this throughout his entire career. I'll ask him his thoughts on it. Of course, he's based in South Florida. He has a horse in the Holy Bull Stakes today. So he hasn't had to miss any training. Yeah, I mentioned the cooler temperatures in South Florida. They're not canceling racing because it's in the low 60s. They're not canceling training because you wake up and the temperatures are in the upper 40s or the low 50s. So the poll question is interesting. If you owned a legitimate Kentucky Derby prospect, would you prep them in a cold weather climate? Two choices, never or yes, I would take my chances. You can go to @HRRN on X to weigh in on that one. You can do it, too, on our Facebook page, just Horse Racing Radio Network, to find us on Facebook. And if you don't do social media, email the show with your thoughts on that question. Mike at horseracingradio.net. Back to the Holy Bull Stakes. I mentioned Incredible and Riley Mott joining me at 9:20. Incredible has looked really good throughout his 2-year-old campaign. This is his 3-year-old debut. But he wrapped up his 2-year-old season with a win in the Grade 3 Street Sense at Churchill Downs. He has 2 wins. Matter of fact, he's undefeated at Churchill. I would say that that's a pretty good sign, although we know that most horsemen will tell you the racetrack in October is completely different than the racetrack that these horses will compete on when they get to the first Saturday in May. But Incredible has a long way to go before he gets there. And Riley Mott was nice enough to spend some time with me yesterday. He had a very busy morning here, so he couldn't be with us live, but he recorded it with me yesterday to talk about what he's seeing from this youngster. What has him excited about Incredible? He has the inside post today. Is that a big concern going a mile and a 16th at Gulfstream? It's no bargain. You come out of the gate, you pretty much make that quick bend, left-handed turn right into the first turn. So it's not a bargain, but Incredible is a horse that, in the street sense, came from dead last. He was 7 of 7 early on. So if he breaks a step slow, you don't feel concerned, other than the fact that maybe Jaime Torres will have to find a way to work out a bit of a different trip from there. But if he breaks well, maybe he gets himself into a stalking position as he did when he broke his maiden at Churchill last September. I think there's a couple of ways that Incredible can be successful in here. Not sure what those fields contained when he was winning the Street Sense and breaking his maiden at Churchill last year. Don't know how good those horses were yet. But we know that there's a couple of runners in this field later today. You have Cannoneer for Brad Cox, the son of Into Mischief, champion sire again. Congrats to everybody at Spendthrift. And our thoughts going out to them with Ted Nafi coming off the Kentucky Derby trail. The champion, the horse that most people felt was the one to beat among this year's crop, at least early on. Not going to get the opportunity. He's out until early May. So he'll point for a second half of the season campaign. Can be a tough game sometimes. You celebrate the highest highs, winning the Eclipse Award, the champion juvenile, undefeated, Breeders' Cup juvenile winner, and then you get the news that he's off the Derby trail, out of training for a few months. But Cannoneer for Brad Cox looked really good last time out. Both of his efforts have come sprinting, and both times he's gotten to an easy lead. He's quick. He'll be forwardly placed, if not on the lead today. He might be the one to catch. And then right to his outside is Nearly for Todd Pletcher. And Nearly, much like Cannoneer, has yet to go 2 turns. So he has that question to answer. But his last win in that allowance race was really nice, very professional. He's proven that he can sit and relax early on in his races. Now, will he do that going 2 turns, stretching out? We'll find out. I'm going to ask Don Little Jr. of Centennial Farms that question later in the program, 9 Eastern. But Nearly looks the part so far. He's by not this time. He's out of a mineshaft mare. You wouldn't think the stretch out would pose any issues for him. It's a solid renewal of the Holy Bull later today with just those 3. And then you have the others in there, many of them long shots, but horses all trying to prove that they belong and deserve to be considered Kentucky Derby contenders. They're all hopefuls at this point. There's a big difference between a hopeful and a contender. We'll see who emerges from that race later this afternoon. But again, talking a lot about the Holy Bull on this program here this morning. I'll give you the full lineup in just a moment, but first it's time to check in with our Lee Della Pina. He has this week's Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question. Lee?
Thank you, Mike. This week's Impossible Trivia question is brought to you by Mojo Racing Partners. Get your mojo working at mojoracingpartners.com. In 1919, Sir Barton won the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness Stakes, then won the Withers Stakes before going on to win the Belmont and the Triple Crown. Name another famous horse that also accomplished this feat. No Googling. We'll give out the answer at the end of the show.
Yeah, get your mojo working, huh? Right around 10:55 Eastern is when I'll have the answer to this week's Impossible Trivia question, so stay tuned for that. Okay, here's the full lineup for you. In just a couple of minutes after this break, Gary Capuano is going to join me from Laurel Park. We'll talk about that postponement of the Spectacular Bid Stakes. Jake Ballis going to be here 8:30 Eastern Time. Big win for him in Dubai last weekend with a horse named Six Speed, who took the UAE 2000 Guineas, earned points through that Middle East road to the Kentucky Derby. We'll talk to Jake coming up in just a few minutes, 8:30 Eastern. Don Little Jr. of Centennial Farms, 9 o'clock. Riley Mott, 9:20. 9:40, it is our very first Kentucky Bred Conversation of 2026, and we kick it off with Chauncey Morris, who is the executive director of the Kentucky Thoroughbred Association and the Kentucky Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders. So stay tuned for that. 10 o'clock Eastern begins hour 3. We kick it off as we do every single week with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Ashley Anderson will give you 3 races to watch and wager on with TwinSpires this afternoon. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History at 10:20 and 10:30. I Ask, They Answer with Dale Romans, with Tim Wilkin. Very busy morning. Gary Capuano next on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Coolmore Stallion Corniche. a $1.5 million OBS April sale topper by Quality Road, and a 2-time Grade 1 winner.
But it's Corniche. He's just too good. Corniche wins the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Voted champion 2-year-old male following his win in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, it's no surprise his 72 yearlings sold for an average of over $170,000, with a top-priced colt of $725,000 and a top-priced filly of $525,000. Corniche standing for only $15,000 at Coolmore's Ashford Stud.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
And probably dreaming, trying to pick up from fourth on the inside is Gurney Halleck. Nothing from Barry Bolado, who suddenly dropped out to last. Top of the stretch, half at 47, 1/5 of a second. Hollywood Import, Michael Sanchez has to kick on. They do so by some 5 lengths. Red Zone Runner second, probably dreaming, fully extended out of the inside. Is trying to reach as well. Coming gamely, probably dreaming, and Red Zone Runner are chasing. Hollywood Import. Hollywood Import is the star of the show today in the heft all the way. Hollywood Import. Probably dreaming, Red Zone Runner, Gurney Halleck.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, with you right up until 11 a.m. Eastern. That was Dave Rodman with the call of the Heft Stakes that was on December 27th at Laurel. A victory for Hollywood Import. Looked good doing it. Gary Capuano, the trainer. Hollywood Import, one of 3 horses that Gary had entered in today's spectacular bid stakes, which, as I mentioned, now postponed until Wednesday after Laurel canceled racing today and tomorrow. The Saturday card shifting to Wednesday, the Sunday card shifting to Thursday. And Gary is with me now. Gary, appreciate the visit.
No problem. Good to be here.
I mentioned the 3 horses. Are all 3 expected to run on Wednesday?
Yes, as of now, yes, they're all ready to go, and we'll see what the weather and the track brings Wednesday. But yep.
How challenging is it when you have a situation like this? And I know you've dealt with this throughout your entire career, but when you have horses ready to go, you get them ready for a race, and then the race gets postponed a few days, and this is only, 4 days, but it can still be significant. How challenging is it?
Well, yes, it can be very challenging sometimes, depending on the work schedule and how they're coming into the race. But this situation seems fine. It doesn't there's not much change. We're able to train in the morning. The track's been pretty decent here, just a little on the slow side. So most of them got their works in last week, and I did work Wild Warrior this morning and kind of blew him out, and just to get a little more speed into him, going back from the 2-turn races. But yeah, they're ready to go, and it just hadn't so far. It hasn't bothered us too much, I don't think.
Let's start with Wild Warrior, since you just brought him up. He has been racing at longer distances. Now he turns back to 7/8 of a mile in the spectacular bid. Tell me about making that decision.
Well, we had a couple options. I was kind of debating on whether to run him in the Withers in New York, and we kind of decided to stay closer to home and try, just shorten him up to 7/8. He shows some speed, going long, but it's a little, it's different 2 turns than it is sprinting. But, he's been training really well. He's getting better. So I think we just decided to stay closer to home this time and see how it goes. But he's doing well.
Yeah, he's a really nice horse. He's honest. He's raced 4 times, 2 wins and 2/3. Hollywood Import, we heard the call of him winning the Heft Stakes back on December 27th as we were coming out of the commercial break there. Tell me a little bit more about him.
Well, he's been just getting better. He's always shown a lot of promise, winning his first start, and then he ran against the second time out in the Lewis. He ran second to Balboa, who came back to run a couple real nice races in New York. So he got beat by a pretty nice horse there. And and then in his next race, he's just going a mile. He just kind of didn't fire. It wasn't a, it was a little bit disappointing. But that one-turn mile at Laurel's kind of tough sometimes, and then coming back in the heft, he had the outside post. He broke really sharp. And, Sanchez took advantage of that, and he was able to get a comfortable lead. And, from there, he just finished off, pretty nice. So he's doing well. He's another one that's just coming into the race. All three of mine are coming in very well.
Does he look like a horse that you'll be able to stretch out again down the road and be successful with him?
Yeah, well, he's another one that I was originally after the heft was thinking that I was going to go to the Withers with. Fortunately I have a few nice, 3-year-olds that were nice 2-year-olds turning 3, and I was, actually thinking of running 2 in New York and running 2 in here, and then just decided, with Hollywood, to stretch out to 1 mile and 1/8 off of that race. I couldn't get enough done with them, in the short period of time to go there. So I figured we'd wait, we'd run them here back 7/8, and then start stretching them out after that if everything goes well.
I guess if you go to the Withers, you're thinking, okay, maybe Kentucky Derby caliber horses. Is that the thought process?
I don't know if they're that quality type horses. They have to, thinking more of maybe if they improve and get better, that Preakness might be a better fit. But I think they'd have to improve quite a bit to make the Derby trail. But yeah, you never know.
Well, the third horse that you've entered in the spectacular bid is Awesome Andy, and this is a horse again. Just like the other two, very honest. 5 starts, 2 wins, a second, 2/3. So never run a bad race.
No. He's another one that's just gotten, he's getting better. He doesn't mind any adversity. He doesn't mind dirt in his face. He's really game. He's last time out. He came through the inside. They made it tight on him, and he still was able to pull his way through and finish off real nice, coming off the 7/8 back to 5.5. He broke his maiden 7/8, came back and ran a really nice race. Numbers are improving. So, he's definitely, fits well in here too. So, all three of the horses really are very, you hate to run them all together, but it's just the way it kind of is. And, I guess maybe whoever gets a good trip, they all have a chance. There's still a couple horses in there that look pretty good, but it's all about the trip, I think.
You said, Gary, you were thinking of maybe running 2 horses in New York, 2 horses at Laurel, and then that plan changed a little bit. Who's the other one?
The other one was Let's Go Lando, who he won earlier this month. He won a race going a flat mile here at Laurel and finished off real good. And he's another one that's, since I've stretched him out and gelded him, he's really improved quite a bit. And he's another one that I was thinking of running in the Withers that I didn't put him in because it was a little quick back for him. So I was thinking of just wait until the end of the month. There's a mile race here at Laurel that I was thinking of pointing him to. So, the Miracle Wood next month. So, but they do re-enter today for the Withers, so there's maybe a remote possibility that I could take a look at that race. But but he was the fourth one.
Gary, coming into today, you have saddled 1,437 winners, and there have been great stakes wins on your resume, but maybe none more famous than Captain Bodgett, who won the Florida Derby back in 1997 and just came along at a really difficult crop that year. But, boy, was he good. You did such a great job with him. Talk about has your approach changed in any way with working with these young horses as they turn 3 than compared to when you had Captain Bodgett?
I don't, maybe a little bit, but no, I just, I enjoy the young horses and bringing them along, and, you're always hopeful that you can get to that trail again. I haven't really had a whole lot that has been that caliber of horse, that's been able to try that. But we're still trying to do the same kind of thing. We're trying to get that horse to go to the Derby, and they're just hard to find.
Mm-hmm. What was Captain Bodgett showing you in late January of his 3-year-old season? And what do you? This is kind of a 2-part question. And then what do you hope that these horses we're talking about this morning will show you when they go to the post in their races next week?
Well, with Captain Bodgett, early on, he was just a really, really nice horse that just, he got beat his first start, and then I think he won like 5 in a row after that as a 2-year-old. But it was in the Laurel Futurity where we stretched him out to 1 1/8 that we really knew what we had. We always thought he was a really nice horse. But until they stretch out, in the Laurel Futurity, which used to always be 2 turns, usually towards the end of the year, so 2-year-old year was a huge stepping stone for a lot of really good horses. And for a 2-year-old, 1 1/8, and the way he did it that day, and he won, that we knew we needed to go to, some bigger races. So we shipped down to Florida, and we started with the Holy Bull. And in that race, that was a huge race that day. He was at the time, it was just a speed favoring track, and he was the only one that day who closed any ground. So he ended up 3rd that day, ran a really good race. And then from there, it was, we went to the, what was it, after the Holy Bull, Fountain of Youth, which he was 3rd in, ran another huge race, and then he came back in the Florida Derby and won. So it was a lot of fun back then.
Yeah, and
long time ago.
It was. Yeah, oh my. Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been that long ago since Captain Bodgett, but it has been. And what a ride he took you on. And the horses that you're saddling later this week. What do you hope that you see from them that leads you to believe, okay, we might have something looking toward the Derby and the Preakness?
Well, we're looking, obviously for good efforts, but you're looking for one of those to really break out and run a really, phenomenal race and just look like they're going to take that next level, that next step up, which is, these 2-year-olds turning 3, some of them make that big leap, and that's what we're looking for, and we'll kind of see how it goes and progress from here. But, hopefully they all run well, and we'll see how it shakes out. That's all.
Gary, before I let you go, it's obviously the attention goes to the boys at this time of year with the road to the Kentucky Derby, but I never want to forget about the ladies and the road to the Kentucky Oaks potentially. But you have a good one in the Extra Heat Stakes, which is also going to be rescheduled for Wednesday, and that's Sweet Shenanigans. Tell me a little bit more about her.
Well, she's a really nice filly that, she's run really well almost every one of her races. She just had one race where she didn't run so well. And I don't know, not sure that day what the deal was, but she's just run against some really nice fillies in her last 2 or 3 starts, and just really ran game. So I'm just waiting. I'm looking for her to break out. She's a New York bred filly. So we got some options with her, but I'm really looking forward to her. She trains real well. She's been running, really well. Just gotten beat with a couple nice fillies, So she's another one. I'm just looking for her to just kind of break out and see where it goes from here. But this is a solid race, very competitive race here. So we'll see how she shakes out, and we'll go from there.
Gary, I appreciate the visit. Stay warm, and best of luck with all of these horses we've been talking about here this morning, my friend.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Gary Capuano here on HRRN. All right, coming up next, going to look back on a huge win in Dubai last weekend for owner Jake Ballis. He is part of an ownership group involved with Six Speed, who won the UAE 2000 Guineas at Meydan, and that's a race that earned them some Kentucky Derby points. We'll do that next, right after this week's edition of your Legends of the Turf and this short commercial break.
When the subject of thoroughbred of this dissertation died September 26, 1945, he left a legacy that stirred more genuine affection in the hearts of sports fans than any other the American turf had ever known. Old Bones, as he later came to be nicknamed, was a lanky foal bred by F.D. Knight and earned universal acclaim on the racetrack in the colors of Willis Sharp Kilmer. As a thoroughbred, he came from nowhere, as the saying goes. His pedigree, my McGee, out of Fair Empress by Jim Gore, screamed aloud that he was strictly from the wrong side of thoroughbred racing's breeding track, so to speak. Somebody early on in his life had the presence and foresight to give him a name that fit him like a rubber glove and said it all about his talent on the racetrack as well. Exterminator. He started 100 times in his illustrious career, 150 being out of the money only 15 times. He had an interesting propensity to return to the winner's circle standing in a rather homely, ho-hum, nonchalant way. He carried the highest weight handicappers could dream up and did so with pride and with distinction. His composite earnings were astounding for the times, over $250,000. The most he ever earned for a win was $14,700 for his 1918 score in the Kentucky Derby. At that, he got to the Derby accidentally, and that story is well worth retelling. Racing for Carl Milam as a 2-year-old after being purchased from his breeder for $1,500 as a yearling, he won 4 times, but showed little, if anything, by way of class. The next spring, Willis Sharp Kilmer had the sensational colt Sunbriar eligible for the classic Run for the Roses, but Sunbriar did not train properly coming up to the race. Shortly before the Derby, Kilmer bought Exterminator from Milam for $9,000 just for the sake of having his silks appear among the starters in the Derby, and the rest is historically chronicled. On a sloppy racetrack, the 30-1 game gelding nicknamed Old Bones, Exterminator, splashed his way to a victory at his very first important stakes event. After that, he won every kind of race that racing secretaries could conceive. Oh, yes, he was beaten often, but not one time for lack of effort. They piled weight on him that would make a mule driver apologize to a mountain burro and send them on out on their best at their favorite distance. Exterminator never gave a poor effort. He was the unequivocal thoroughbred idol of racing patrons everywhere, his name a household word. He ran under the tutelage of 7 different trainers and made everybody famous that was ever connected with him. As gutsy and courageous a performer as ever set foot on the American racetrack, he was game to the core, even to his last race when he broke down and yet hung on determinedly to finish 3rd. In the early morning hours of September 26, 1945, he met the Grim Reaper in a stall at Sunbriar Court in Binghamton, New York, at the age of 30. An inconspicuous stone marker stands there today above his head on a simple grave overlooking the Susquehanna River alongside his one-time stablemate, Sunbriar. Inconspicuous as it may be, that stone does reflect in its very pristinity that the American turf is a far, far greater and far, far richer institution for Old Bones having passed by. Exterminator.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
He went 3 quarters in 9-1. He looks like he put life and times away. Down the center, back him up from between Tour Player. They're 1/8 of a mile from home. It's Knightsbridge in front and still clear now by 3. Up into second at a big prices. Back him up. Back to third is Life and Times. But it's Team Sovereignty on Pegasus Day. It's Bill Mott, Junior Alvarado, and Godolphin with Knightsbridge who win the Fred Hooper.
Knightsbridge, wow. The son of Nyquist winning the Grade 3 Fred Hooper last Saturday at Gulfstream Park under jockey Junior Alvarado for Hall of Fame trainer Bill Mott. Knightsbridge improved his record to 5 wins from 7 starts with that impressive win, earning a 105 buyer. He is a half-brother to Darley Stallion Speaker's Corner and is out of a half-sister to new Darley Stallion Highland Falls. Learn more about Nyquist and all the Darley Stallions by visiting darleyamerica.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
And it's 6-speed and Lino Padrino. The Bootbat Seamer pair go to war here at the 400 in the 2,000 Guineas. 6-speed, still with a couple of lengths at bay for Barcelona. Out by 2.5 now to Lino Padrino, running on Union Security and Devon Island from the back, but it's 6-speed. 6-speed out to 1,600 metres. He's getting to the end of his distance range, but he keeps lifting and finding and rising to the task. Away goes 6-speed in the 2,000 Guineas and goes on to win by 4 lengths. Devon Island in a photo finish with Union Security. 4th over Lino Padrino from Raj.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. 6-speed with a huge win in Dubai last weekend, taking the UAE 2,000 Guineas at Meydan, and now finds himself tied at the top of the European Middle East road to the Kentucky Derby with 20 points. He's tied with Hawk Mountain for Aidan O'Brien and, of course, the Coolmore team. But what a fantastic effort that was for 6-speed, owned in part by Jake Ballis, and he is with me now here on HRRN. Jake, good morning, brother.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, doing great, bud. Congratulations on that huge effort. I got to say, that win was kind of groovy.
Yeah,
I couldn't resist.
Yeah, I like that. Hopefully he'll be half as good as what Groovy was.
Yeah, really nice effort, though. Tell me a little bit more about being there, watching him in action, and the way that he did that last weekend.
You know, it was pretty special. And I've never been over to the Middle East, and I had travel nightmares, and I ended up not getting into the day of the race, and so very little sleep. One of my partners came. I met him over there, and but it was gratifying because we just purchased the horse and we finalized the deal on Monday. They took entries Tuesday, flew over there, got there Friday, so it was kind of a whirlwind of a week. And anytime you purchase a horse privately, that first race is very nerve-wracking because you want to be right and you want to show all your partners and everyone else you made the right decision to spend a good amount of money to buy a horse and expect him to run big. We thought he had run well. I'm not going to say he exceeded our expectations, but he did. He did kind of put on a show over there that night, and it was a lot of fun. And I was just very happy for all of our partners that trusted Maddie and myself to put up money to buy a horse like him.
What was it about him that led you to say, okay, we need to write this check. We need to get in on this horse?
It was the way he won at running 7/8. And he set off behind horses. He was sitting 4th, coming off a 3/4 win when he was gate to wire. So he broke sharp, set behind horses, took dirt, and when the jockey asked him, he had a huge turn of foot on the dirt, and you don't see that often. And so we always look at horses to buy privately to try to get us to the big races. And in the States, we've been trying, and it's very, very difficult to get deals done. So the first thing was how the horse did it. And secondly was Not This Time. We've purchased 4 Not This Times in the past. He's our 5th one. 2 of them won grade 1s. 2 others are stake placed. And so he's our 5th one. Now he's a grade 3 winner. So Not This Time obviously was a big factor. And then the female family is huge. So it was just a combination of his pedigree and how he did it. And in all fairness, I didn't think we'd be able to get a deal done. When you see a horse run like that, it's, they paid $300,000. Typically, people aren't going to sell, but you never know till you ask. And we ask a lot of times, and just sorry, not for sale, not for sale. But we were lucky on this deal that the original owners wanted to entertain it, and we got a deal done in the last second.
Have you had people reach out to you after this win and say, "Hey, Jake, you interested in selling now?"
No, funny enough, whenever our horses run big or run big figures, we don't really get many phone calls. I don't know if it's a perception that we won't sell, which is just not the case. But it's funny how that works. I'm usually on the other end trying to buy horses, and I didn't get many phone calls. I got a lot of congratulations texts, and heard from people, some stallion forums just saying, "Hey, keep us in the loop if you decide to do something later down the road." But no one's called asking to buy in yet.
What impressed you most about that win in the 2000 Guineas last weekend?
The way he was finishing. You hear all this chatter about the horse, that he doesn't want the distance, he's limited, and I don't think there's any basis to go off of with people saying that. Now, they may all be right at the end of the day, but the way he finished last furlong, he was drawing away. He wasn't under a full drive. Pedigree-wise, he's supposed to be able to stretch out. And so it was nice to see that, he didn't win, struggling at the end. So he gave us hope that 2 turns won't be an issue going forward, and to hopefully get us to Kentucky in that first Saturday in May.
Does he stay in Dubai now for the UAE Derby?
Yeah, we'll keep him over there to try to accumulate as many points as we can, and hopefully make it that way. We talked about shipping him here just for a little bit beforehand, but it doesn't make any sense. He's thriving over there in the program that he's in, and UAE Derby is a lot of money. So just keep him over there, and we'll ship him down afterwards.
Will you make the trip back over? I'm sure you will.
Yes, I will. I will definitely go back for the UAE Derby. There's a chance he runs in between in the next Derby prep race. I won't go to that one. It's just kind of too quick of a 3 times flying over there is really not in the cards. So, but we will go on the 28th of March, and as of right now, we have a pretty good group lined up to make the trip with us.
Yeah, I know that you talk about looking at getting in on horses that will take you to the big races, but it doesn't get any bigger than the Kentucky Derby. And I know you've been there before, but man, how much would you love to get back there and be sitting there at Churchill Downs and walk into the paddock with your horse again?
There's no feeling like it. We did it one time back in 2009, the first horse we ever purchased, and I was green and didn't know much then. Kind of thought, hey, this isn't that difficult. And now we're in 2026, and we haven't been back. And but it would be really gratifying, like I said, for my partners. And we got a new partner that joined us this year. They've never owned horses before. That was actually their first runners. So to be their first horse and their silks, have a chance to go to the Derby, it's pretty special for them. And it would mean a lot to myself and all of our partners if we can just get to the Derby this year. Maybe they're your lucky charm. I hope so. Yeah, I mean, they so far so good. Cross our fingers.
What that's a. Let me ask you this question, Jake, because I think that's really interesting. What was it about racehorses and about our game that led them to want to get involved?
They grew up in Cincinnati, and since they moved to Houston and ran a business there. And they used to go to Turfway and the smaller tracks growing up. So they've always had an interest in it. And we had a mutual friend in Houston, and they sold a company, so they're trying to figure out something else to do for fun. And our mutual friend introduced us and kind of went over the success that we've had the last several years, and just kind of talked to them about the ins and outs of racing and the risk involved. And they were all for it. And they partnered with us on our yearlings this year. So we have 11 2-year-olds now. And I always said, hey, we're going to get something done private. We just have to be patient. Because it's a lot of, you sit there and buy yearlings and you wait. And you don't know which one's good, which one's bad, how many are going to be good. So I said, once we find something private, we should jump in because you get instant action. Hopefully you get to the big races a lot quicker, but you do have to pony up more money. And they've been great, and they put full trust in us and Maddie and myself, and not many questions as far as, we don't like this horse or stuff. They know they're kind of new, but they are educated in the game. And so I think it's fun. People like them and my other partner, Reagan, if you're competitive, there's no better sport in the world to be involved in. And especially when you see your silks for the first time cross the wires, there's no better feeling.
Yeah, I know you are competitive. Obviously, grew up playing basketball and got a chance to travel around the country as you were playing. You're very competitive, and I know you love to win. And like you say, that thrill of watching your horse cross the finish line doesn't matter if it's a maiden race or if it's a race like last weekend with the UAE 2000 Guineas. That thrill is, man, if you could bottle it and sell it, we'd have the easiest marketing plan in the world.
Yeah, our industry, I don't think they do a good enough job of marketing exactly what you just said. I mean, Mike, you can run a 20 claimer in your silks, and you feel like you won a grade 1.
Yep.
I mean, it is so exciting when you see your silks, and it doesn't have to be your silks, but a horse that you're involved with and you own part of, and that horse wins. It's like nothing else matters at that moment. And especially with a horse like him, people don't get involved, or you shouldn't be involved if you can't dream. And so to dream about big races in the Kentucky Derby, that's what the game is all about. Kentucky Oaks, Derby, Breeders' Cup. And if you don't have those aspirations or dreams, I would recommend not to get involved.
Yeah. Jake Ballis with me here on HRRN, Black Type Thoroughbreds. His syndicate and his organization has now gotten involved with 6-Speed, winner of the UAE 2000 Guineas at Meydan. You just heard him talk about that. Jake, you also talked about being at the Kentucky Derby for the first time in 2009. That was with Join in the Dance. How much has your approach to the business changed since you first got involved back then?
Well, like I said earlier, I didn't know much. I mean, I had Cordero call me and say, hey, we're going to go buy this horse. And it was the first horse that we bought since, my dad in the 80s. And, he took it, like I said, he took us to the Derby, and we kind of thought, well, this is easy. So once you start learning the business more and more, and then, I moved to Kentucky to learn it, and we were buying yearlings and 2-year-olds. And so the approach is still, on the private horse, is still kind of the same. Try to go identify something that you think that can improve. And like I said, get you the big races, because that's what your partners at the end of the day, that's what they want. They want to go to the big races. They want to go to the Derbies and be there in person for those. You don't get involved to go run on Wednesday night somewhere. But like our approach now, we have about 20 horses. Back then we had 1, and we never had more than probably 3 in a year. And in 2009, once we started our partnership, and we got Reagan Swinbank involved and other partners, that everyone that started has been under Black Type. So you'll see 4 or 5 different names in the form, but we're all under Black Type, and so we've been partners forever. So it looks like there's more people involved, but there's really not. They've taken a larger percentage, their names on the form. So in 2019, we started a partnership with 1 horse with 6 partners. The next year we had 15 partners, 3 horses, and it's grown now. So we're able this year, 11 yearlings, and we'll buy maybe a 2-year-old I'm training. We don't go after those usually. Last year we bought Cy Fair. He won the Breeders' Cup for Reagan. So if something comes about there at the 2-year-old sale, we can buy if we want. But so our whole business model now is buy yearlings and go try to buy 2 or 3 a year off the track. And we've had a lot of luck buying off the track. It is getting a lot more difficult now as far as the willingness for owners to sell, which is one reason we, not went to Dubai, but inquired about it, because it's, I didn't know if they would be interested or not be interested. But so far we're 1-for-1 over there, and, we've bought a horse out of Europe. So we're watching all the races everywhere to try to find the next star.
Is Richard still involved?
No, he's not. He's coaching for the San Antonio Spurs, and he hasn't been involved for a couple of years. It was just kind of with his children coaching, he never had time to go to the races. And that's another selling point or aspect I bring up to our partners. People are giving us, a good amount of money. And I try to tell everyone, if you're not going to go to the races and enjoy it, it's hard for me to say, hey, keep giving me money. Because a lot of the reason you're doing this is for the experience and to go have a lot of fun. And there's nothing more fun than being at the races when you win. So if you're not going to go to the races, in my mind, why do you want to keep putting up money in racing? And that's kind of where Richard went.
Yeah, Richard Lewis, former NBA All-Star. We're talking about him, and now, as Jake said, coaching for the San Antonio Spurs. Jake, you think about everything you've been able to accomplish, and I started off with that corny comment about Groovy, who was the 1987 champion sprinter owned by your father. Man, how cool would it be to add your name to that list and somehow find yourself a champion and have your name alongside a champion in our sport?
That's the goal, is to get a champion. And we're trying, and I do have to remind my dad that I have won more grade ones than he had than he won. So I can hold that over. He did have a faster horse, but we've won more grade ones, so I got to remind him of that just to keep him in line.
I love it. Jake, man, good luck with 6 Speed. I really appreciate the visit. It's been too long. Let's catch up again down the road here before too long, and let's go get it done in the UAE Derby.
I appreciate it, Mike, and thanks for having me on. It has been too long.
All right, Jake Ballis, black-type thoroughbreds. What a run that they have had. But you hear them talk about not just the thrill of victory and watching your horses win, doesn't matter what level it is, but the fact that, the goal is when you get partners involved, you want them to experience these thrills on the big stage. He actually said you don't get involved in the game to run horses on a Wednesday night somewhere. You're involved for the Saturday afternoon horses. That's what you're looking for, and that's what they found in 6 Speed, and let's hope he continues to move in the right direction. The arrow certainly pointed up. We'll see if he continues to move that way as he makes his way down the road to the UAE Derby, but good luck to everybody involved there, and well done. Coming up next after this break, you're going to hear this week's edition of Calling All 3-Year-Olds presented by Spendthrift. I'll bring you your Kentucky Bred update, and I'll get you ready for hour number 2. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Woodford Feed, where tradition merges with technology. Family owned since 1940 and providing exceptional customer service, Woodford Feed specializes in the highest quality feed, using only the finest ingredients to ensure optimal nutrition for your horses. In addition, Woodford Feed can help with all your farm needs, including field seed, fertilizer, and weed control. So whether your horse is sprinting around the racetrack or has a foal by her side, count on Woodford Feed to provide the quality nutrition necessary to perform at the highest level. Woodford Feed, Versailles, Kentucky.
Did you know? VA home loans are a key to home ownership for those who served.
I would tell anybody who is interested in getting a VA loan to just do it.
For me, the best thing about the VA loan was the simplicity of it. I was expecting, government paperwork, it was going to go on forever, and it just wasn't.
Since the down payment for a VA loan is minimal, we were able to purchase this home and then use the money that we were going to use as a down to actually fix up the home.
And the only way we could do that was because the nest egg that we had saved for the down payment, we didn't have to use because we went the VA route.
This is a wonderful benefit that veterans can take advantage of.
In the military, we make a lot of sacrifices. We're away from our family a lot. And with the VA loan, it's a way that it makes it easier for us to get a home.
To learn more about VA home loans, visit va.gov/home loans.
Ms. Fernandez, what are those tiny things?
Those are what we call amoebas. You can only see them through a microscope.
Wow.
Today's students are tomorrow's great thinkers and innovators. But right now, there's a funding crisis in public schools. Millions of kids go to schools that don't have funding for books, computers, and so much more just because of where they live. You can help change that. Donor Shoes is a nonprofit that lets you support students and teachers in your community and beyond. You choose which supplies to support. You could provide first graders with pencils and paper, or other students with their first chapter books, help a music class get a guitar.
You could even supply a classroom like mine with a science project. But what you're really giving is the moment that sparks a brighter tomorrow.
To learn more, please visit DonorsChoose.org. That's DonorsChoose.org. Choose students. Shape the future.
Thursday evenings, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern, is the Brisnet.com call-in show. It's your chance to call in and let the Horse Racing Radio Nation know what's on your mind. Call us at 888-966-HRRN. That's 888-966-4776. And discuss the topics you choose in the world of thoroughbred racing. The Brisnet.com call-in show. Sirius 162, XM 207, and streaming live at horseracingradio.net.
They're all in line. And they're off.
Spendthrift Farm presents Calling All 3-Year-Olds with Bobby Neuman.
The Lone Points qualifier on the road to the Kentucky Derby last weekend took place in the Middle East as Meydan hosted the UAE 2000 Guineas. 6-speed dominated the full field of 12, scoring by 4 lengths in the 1-mile test and earning 20 points for the win. Look for him to remain in the Middle East as he continues down the Kentucky Derby trail. There were 3 big stakes scheduled for the sophomores in the U.S. this weekend. We start at Gulfstream Park and the Grade 2 Holy Bull at 1 1/16. The field of 9 includes graded stakes winner Incredibolt, but he'll have to fire big off the layoff to beat the likes of Global Aviator, Cannoneer, Bravaro, and Nearly. At Aqueduct, the Wither Stakes has been postponed from this weekend to a future date. The field of 8 is supposed to include impressive recent maiden breakers 4th and 1, Otinho, Schoolyard Superman, and Talk to Me Jimmy, all taking on the multiple stakes winner Mailata, among others. And Oaklawn Park returns to Derby Trail action next Friday with the rescheduled Grade 3 Southwest, also at 1 1/16. 14 3-year-olds were entered, including stakes winners Litmus Test and Strategic Risk. The talented field also includes several big-figure maiden or allowance winners like Decode, Butane, Liberty National, Bricklin, and Soldier and Diplomat. All 3 of these Derby preps are worth 20 points to the winners. Next weekend, the 20-pointers continue with the Robert B. Lewis at Santa Anita and the Sam F. Davis at Tampa. I'll be back with this week's top 5 list right after this word from Spendthrift.
In racing, bloodlines are kingdoms, and every kingdom needs an heir. Sired by Uncle Mo, Kingsbarns was chosen for greatness. An $800,000 2-year-old built like an empire. He defeated champion Arcangelo on debut, dominated the Louisiana Derby in his 3rd start, and achieved a defining victory in the Grade 1 Stephen Foster. Kingsbarns, where the line of kings continues.
Standing at Spendthrift Farm, Kingsbarns' first foals are arriving now.
This week's top 5 list of Derby contenders looks like this. Number 5, Nearly, improving Pletcher trainee, looks for Derby points in the Holy Bull later today. Number 4, Golden Tempo, 2 for 2 after his game win in the Lecomte. He figures to continue down the Fairgrounds route to Kentucky. Number 3 is Commandment, rousing winner of the Mucho Macho Man Has Talent. He's aiming for the Fountain of Youth at Gulfstream on February 28th. Number 2, Further Ado, followed up a monstrous maiden win with a nice score in the Kentucky Jockey Club. And number 1 is Paladin, looked great winning the Remsen in just his 2nd career start. He's pointing for the Risen Star at Fairgrounds on February 14th next. That's your Calling All 3-Year-Old segment presented by Spendthrift, the Breeders' Farm.
We're going to continue to talk about the 3-year-old picture and the Holy Bull Stakes coming up in hour number 2. Don Little Jr. of Centennial Farm set to join me in just a couple of moments. Riley Mott at 9:20, and then our Kentucky Bred Conversation, the first of 2026, with Chauncey Morris rounding out hour 2 at 9:40 Eastern Time. Time now for your monthly Kentucky Bred update. And listen, for the 4th consecutive year, the Eclipse Award for Horse of the Year belongs to Kentucky. With Sovereignty taking the 2025 Horse of the Year crown at this year's Eclipse Awards, he joins Torpedo Anna, Cody's Wish, and Flightline as recent winners of the prestigious honor. All told, Kentucky Breds took home 8 Eclipse Awards, with Super Corridora, the 2-year-old filly, Ted Noffey, 2-year-old male, Nitrogen, 3-year-old filly, She's So Spicy, the female sprinter, Torpedo Anna, older dirt female, and She Feels Pretty, female turf horse, while Sovereignty was also honored as champion 3-year-old male. And to kick off 2026, Kentucky Breds are already leading the pack after sweeping the first Grade 1s of the season, with Skippy Longstocking winning the $3 million Pegasus World Cup Turf, Pegasus World Cup, and then Tescore taking the $1 million Pegasus World Cup Turf at Gulfstream Park. It also pays to race and to breed in the Bluegrass. A record $20 million in awards was paid to breeders participating in the Kentucky Thoroughbred Breeders Incentive Fund program last year for racing in 2024. KBIF has provided more than $250 million to breeders of Kentucky breds winning eligible races worldwide since the program was implemented in 2005. Kentucky remains one of the leading racing jurisdictions, averaging a near record high purse per race of $112,648 and an average field size of 8.9 in 2024. Make sure your horse is KTDF and KBIF eligible to secure your share of lucrative awards worldwide. For more information on racing and breeding in Kentucky, visit KentuckyBreds.com. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win. Speaking of Kentucky, and speaking of Central Kentucky in particular, Lexington, if you're going to be there for any reason over the coming months, make sure that you get your reservations at Tony's of Lexington. They're located on Main Street, right behind Rupp Arena. The best steak you will ever have. I promise you. I have traveled all over with our HRRN shows, and I'm a steak and potatoes guy. I have never had a steak like I've had at Tony's. Got a text message from some friends last night who were there. Enjoyed an incredible meal. Make sure you do it. It's a great atmosphere, great service. Tony's of Lexington. Get your reservations now. I promise you will not be disappointed. Don Little Jr. kicking off hour 2 right after this 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch. Happy to have you in the saddle with me. If you missed any portion of the first hour of the show, a couple of really fun conversations. Gary Capuano looking ahead to the spectacular bid stakes and the extra heat stakes, which are now shifted to Wednesday at Laurel after canceling racing for Saturday and Sunday. And then you heard from Jake Ballis, the owner of Six Speed, winner of last weekend's UAE 2000 Guineas at Meydan. That was a really fun conversation. We got into a lot of other topics as well. And if you missed any portion of those, head back to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can listen to the podcast whenever you have a little time. With all of the cancellations taking place in New York, at Oaklawn, at Laurel, my poll question this morning is pretty simple. If you owned a legitimate Kentucky Derby prospect, would you prep them in a cold weather climate? And so far, 71% of you are saying never. Absolutely never. Only 29% responding and saying yes, you would do it. You can weigh in on the poll question. Keep the votes coming at HRRN on X, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or you can email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net. If you're not a social media person, I get it. Just email the show and let me know your thoughts. Don Little Jr., Centennial Farms, they don't have to worry about the weather, although it's not typical South Florida weather at Gulfstream this afternoon. It ain't freezing, and that's welcome news. And he's looking forward to today's Holy Bull Stakes. He's with me now here on HRRN. Don, good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Mike. And being from New England, I have to say that when we compete, we prefer a little snow every now and then.
I know exactly where you're going with that. And I told you, if you
stick the Patriots thing in sooner or later.
Lee, he's got to go. I said if he uses the P word on my show, he has to go. You can't. Well, Don, congratulations to your Patriots, and I'll congratulate all the Seahawk fans out there as well. It should be a fun Super Bowl next weekend. It's going to be one hell of a Holy Bull Stakes this afternoon, and you're hoping that your Todd Pletcher train Nearly can take that next step. Tell me more about him.
Well, that's always the big question in this game, the next step. It's a privilege to be here once again. We've been fortunate enough to be here a few times over the Centennial history, and kudos to Dr. Stephen Carr and Paula Parsons, who were instrumental in selecting our prospects at the draft every year, if you will. And this horse is a great example of one that has, successfully made the transition from 2 to 3 so far. I watched him get on the van from Palm Beach Downs to head down to Gulfstream this morning, and he looks ready, as ready can be. And again, the question mark is 2 turns, as there are a few competitors in this race facing the same challenge. But we think we have a very good chance.
What when you have conversations with Todd, what things does he tell you that gives you the confidence this first 2-turn test won't be an issue?
Well, Todd, like any other trainer, isn't going to stick their necks out too much, but just the way that, Todd has chatted with Dr. Carr and myself on occasion, that he's just doing well, and the way he moves and his hind end, and the fight in him, if you will. When he ran in that race and got slammed out of the gate, and I talked to Johnny this morning too, he was there, and just said how much of a competitive spirit that he has. That got him mad, and he pinned his ears, and Johnny said he almost wanted to come back and bite that other horse. And in his last breeze with a very nice horse, class president, he got his head in front of Nearly a little bit, and he just clucked to him and pinned his ears and went back at him. And so he's got that fight in him. Being out of a mine shaft mare, who was great at a mile and a quarter mine shaft. We're hoping that'll carry us that extra distance and the speed that he's got. He's got that speed, tactical speed with him too.
Don, you purchased him at the Keeneland September sale from our friends at Denali Stud for $350,000. What did you see in him early on that led you to write that check?
Well, I think that, like Dr. Carr and Paula again, we have certain criterias, and he met that. He had a beautiful walk, that presence about him, as my dad used to call it, the look of eagles. I tend to look at their eyes and see what they're focusing on when they're out of the stall, and he just had that really good presence. And, timing is everything. And not this time. It just started to be, make his presence. If he was going through the yearling ring today, he wouldn't be 350. He'd be almost triple that, would be my guess. And Steve and Paul have been instrumental in buying out of first-year stallions that have gone on to be Grade 1 winners for us, that have helped the stallions, reputation. We've bought horses out of first crops from Fabiano, Danzig, private account, and we have another one here, hopefully.
Yeah, he certainly looks the part at this point. Again, much like other contenders who are on the Derby trail at this point, or hoping to be on the Derby trail, they have a lot to prove. And that two-turn question is a big one for Nearly, for a horse who is inside, and Cannoneer from the barn of Brad Cox. He's looked good, but he is also going two turns for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I can go back to you might remember a horse by the name of Unified.
Yep.
He came out with guns blaring and won his first 3 races. And, we weren't on the Derby trail because it was late. But, we tried him around 2 turns as a prep for the Haskell, and it just wasn't meant to be. We didn't know that until we tried that. And that's, the hopes and dreams in this game are there. We're hopefully filling some dreams today. And but he's developed in a nice way, and we're hopeful that he gets a good trip, and maybe somebody will go with Cannoneer, but we're ready. We're ready. That's all I can say and we hope for the best.
Talking with Don Little Jr., the owner of Centennial Farms, Nearly going in the Holy Bull Stakes this afternoon at Gulfstream Park. Post time right around 5:40 Eastern. Might go slightly after that mark, but should be one heck of a horse race. You know what, Don, I spent some time yesterday talking about you with Jimmy Jerkins. He was my guest for a full hour on my Trainer Talk show, which is presented by Fasig-Tipton. And it was such a wonderful visit. We walked back through some of his favorite memories, and he spent time talking about his trip to Saudi Arabia, making that move, and then coming back to the U.S. and all of those things. But, horses like Wicked Strong and Corinthian, you mentioned Unified, Preservationist. These are horses that you partnered on with Jimmy as your trainer and had so much success.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. There's a big connection, and when Dad started this in '82, and Dr. Carr, who I mentioned, he was a longtime friend through the polo world, and we knew the Jerkins family through the polo world. And the thoroughbred athlete, was instrumental in that sport as well. So, the stories go back to when Alan was with us too, and who trained our first Grade 1 winner, and a filly by the name of Aptostar. And actually, funny you bring up Jimmy. I just got a picture sent to me today from Eddie Davis of me standing in the Jerkins shed row, filling the water buckets. So it's sort of, all in the family, if you will. And God hasn't asked me to do that yet, but if I have to, I might be able to fill in. But, the connections and the memories and the people in this industry are so genuine. It makes it, and the partners that we have at Centennial, the same thing. We had quite a group this morning at Palm Beach Downs watching the other horses that are in the same group as Nearly that look pretty promising down the road as well. It makes my job not a job, and we're fortunate in life as you doing something that you love and enjoying it with others and helping or providing that joy makes it very gratifying.
Jimmy told me that down the road he would really like to get back out on his own again and hang his own shingle, see his name in the program. How much would you welcome the opportunity to work with him again?
That door is open. Jimmy and I have a long-standing relationship with his family.
Yeah.
It was tough it was tough when he told me what he was doing, but I can understand it. It's hard these days in this game. The expenses are increased quite a bit. It is a numbers game. The industry is still a great industry, and the new owners have to realize patience and realize that there are a lot of people out there that have gone on to other things in life, but there are a lot of great horsemen that should be reconsidered and brought back into this game and join the fray, if you will. And it's not just the thoroughbred industry, Mike. I see it in the polo world, the show jumping world. The horse venues are hurting a little bit in terms of the numbers, of people getting in and staying in is the big thing.
Yeah. Talking about Jimmy here again for just a minute, but Jimmy, Todd, obviously they've had so much success in this game. What makes them so good at what they do?
I guess you can say it's instinct. Is my best answer. It's the old, you can teach everybody a lot. It's how they interpret what they learn. And certain people are better at it than others. It's not saying they're a better person or not.
Yeah.
But they literally, I can say, are gifted. And that just comes through experience and how they take their lumps and bruises and apply that to the next step in the next learning curve. And I, like myself, I was born into it. I kudos to those that get in late and they're successful. But bottom line is, you got to be born with it a little bit, and you got to be gifted.
Just like any athlete, any sport, anything,
any sport,
any industry.
Sport. You can't win 7 Super Bowls. It's a team effort. It's the people. Successful people are surrounded by successful people, and people that are willing to learn and compromise. And Todd's team is terrific. Jimmy's team was terrific. Everybody's different, and the bottom line is both Todd and Jimmy, though they approached it a little bit differently, they still, as a core, are great horse people that are patient, do the best for the horse, and that's the bottom line.
Don, I know you've got some things to get to here this morning. It's a busy morning for you. I'll ask you one more question before I let you go. And I asked this same question of Jake Ballis when he was with me in the first hour of the program. How much has your approach to the sport or running your business changed since you first got involved and then ultimately took over from your father?
Well, the biggest change was when the tax laws changed in the late 80s, going from fillies to colts. We went from big to smaller in terms of the number of people involved in the partnerships. This is an experience. Yes, we're in the horse business, but the bottom line is we're in the entertainment business for people that are new to get in, and they want to be part of something that is part of the spectacle. And having a horse, hopefully on the Derby trail, we're not there yet, but hopefully on the Derby, that's a dream. And people want to do that. In order to do that, it's expensive, and to limit the risk, you do it with some people. The Rubiano partnership, when we won the Sprint Champion in 92, that partnership had 61 people in it. We don't do that anymore. We want people to get licensed, have some fun, create a atmosphere and friendship. Everybody's friends. They're not just a name or number. Everybody gets involved. They do things together outside of Centennial's activities in the races. And, we want people to stick around. That's the biggest thing. And yes, the tax advantages are still great, but people need to do this as a long-term plan of their enjoyment in life. And I can't think of any other sport or quote-unquote investment that provides that.
Really well said. Don Little Jr., Centennial Farms. Don, best of luck with Nearly and then all the horses you're going to be campaigning over the coming months. But let's go get it done in the Holy Bull this afternoon.
Yeah, and Antiquarian's coming back, too. He looks good.
Yeah. What's his schedule?
He's been back with Todd for about 3 weeks now, and maybe something, you could think of maybe the Go Zap or Florida Derby weekend or something like that. But, like last year, work our way backwards and hope to get to the Breeders' Cup in Kentucky.
All right, buddy. All the best, and go Seahawks.
Yes, sir. I'll give you that one.
Enjoy the race. Enjoy the Super Bowl, brother.
All right, pal.
You got it. See you later. Don Little Jr. Well, obviously from New England. Huge New England. I can't even say the word, but the P word. He's a big fan of that team in New England, and I'd like to have a little fun with him. Nearly looks like he's legit, but he's got to prove, like Don said, they're not there yet. They're not on the Derby trail yet. He has to show he belongs in the Holy Bull today, and this is a good test for him as he stretches out to 2 turns for the very first time. By the way, if you missed that full 1 hour with Jimmy Jerkins yesterday on Trainer Talk, boy, did you miss a lot. What an awesome visit that was. Head back and check out the podcast when you get some time at horseracingradio.net or wherever you listen to your podcast. Type in Horse Racing Radio Network Trainer Talk. It'll be right there, and you'll get a chance to listen. Okay, time to update you on your Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question before Riley Mott joins me in the next segment. Here it is. In 1919, Sir Barton won the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness Stakes before going on to win the Withers and then the Belmont and the Triple Crown. Name the other famous horse to accomplish this feat. Get your mojo working. No Googling. The answer comes your way at the end of the show, right around 10:55 Eastern Time. Riley Mott talks Incredibolt next on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The National HBPA is continuously working to protect the health and welfare of horses by advocating and funding research to help reduce equine injuries, lobbying for a national testing lab to oversee and establish absolute uniform laboratory protocols, advocating for every track to undergo an annual independent surface assessment, passionately supporting off-the-track thoroughbred retirement facilities and adoption groups, and so much more. See additional HBPA initiatives at nationalhbpa.com.
Fans, prepare for a terrific weekend coming up here at Santa Anita Park. We have 9 big races today at Santa Anita Park and some terrific wagering opportunities. There are 2 Pick 4s, 2 Pick 5s, a $3 late Pick 3, the Sunset Pick 6, and the $5 late Daily Double, all with low 15% takeouts. And the ever-popular Coast to Coast Pick 5 that always has terrific payouts and has that also low 15% takeout. Plus, don't forget the traditional $2 Pick 6. My best bet today comes in race number 3. It is number 2, With Love, trained by the outstanding trainer, John Sadler. I think you can bet her with confidence today. You can also be confident that we will have some great events coming up, like the Smorgasbord Dumpling Day event on February 7th. We also have 3 big graded stakes races that day, including the Grade 2 D. Wayne Lucas Stakes. You can get all the details about all our great events at santaanita.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
3 of them across the track as I come for the top of the stretch. Guineas and Universe, I did, trying to sustain that rally. They're off the turn. Guineas and Universe continue in tandem for long to go. Incredibolt's going to try and pick them up late. 4th, now 3rd, and targeting the top 2. 16th to go, and here comes Incredibolt. Incredibolt is a last to first, flashy winner of the Street Sense, and does it by 2.
and Universe will have to settle for second. It's farther back, tight between Very Connected or I Did.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Travis Stone with the call of the Grade 3 Street Sense. And if you're the owner or the trainer of Incredibolt, it's always nice when the announcer says a flashy winner of any race, but certainly a graded stakes race like that. And the trainer of Incredibolt, Riley Mott, joins us now here on HRRN. He is back in action for his 3-year-old debut this afternoon in the Grade 3 Holy Bull at Gulfstream. It's a fantastic race, and Incredibolt is right there in the discussion as the horses to beat. Riley, good morning.
Yeah, morning. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, he has done nothing wrong. He finishes 4th in his debut, and then his next 2 starts, when you start getting him to a little bit of a longer distance, boy, did he look good in both of those efforts, both victories. Talk to me about his 2-year-old campaign.
Yeah, from the get-go, we always really liked him. I know the team at Pin Oak on the farm, also really liked him in the pre-training, in the breaking process, and before he arrived to us at the racetrack. As soon as we got him in, he just kind of separated himself from the rest of the group, in his training and his, physical attributes. He's a very pretty horse, an elegant-looking type with some good scope and a beautiful stride. So, it was nice to have him in the barn and see him progress up until his first race. We ran him 3/4 at Ellis, knowing it was, probably a bit short for him, but I think it was important to get some race education into him, and that sort of propelled him to some pretty good efforts, going 8 furlongs and 8.5 furlongs at Churchill.
What's impressed you most about the way he's developed and progressed so far?
Well, he just really goes out there and trains with purpose and enthusiasm, and all of his works, he's just been really forward, doing everything very easily, but not overdoing it. I think there's a fine line between a horse working into the bridle and being very willing, and then one trying to do too much and just sort of running with no purpose. So he kind of just acted like a bit of a race car, from the get-go, just always there for you, but you're able to control him, and he's continued to train that way and run that way. So we've been happy, and he's a fun horse to train from a trainer's perspective.
Yeah, I think he showed a lot of maturity as a 2-year-old, sitting off the pace in his maiden win, and then coming from, as we heard Travis Stone say, last to first to win the Street Sense. Quite often, these young horses, as you know, will take off early on in their races, and it can be a challenge to teach them to sit. Well, he hasn't had a problem with that.
Yeah, no, he's always there for you. He listens to the riders' cues in the morning and in the afternoon. As you said, he kind of did everything quite professionally in his last 2 races. And, what he really beat in those 2 races, I'm not sure, but he kind of passed the eye test. He'll certainly have to run and improve and improve on his numbers and step up. But, so far he's just kind of done everything well to the eye.
The last race, the Street Sense, was just about 3 months ago at Churchill. What things have you seen from Incredibolt since then, and what have these past few months been like for him?
Well, right after the Street Sense, he had a planned working vacation at Pin Oak. We sent him there. They've got a big, beautiful farm with a great training facility, and we just gave him a little bit of a breather and jogged him for a month there. Let them look after him for a bit, and then December 1st he came down to Florida and hasn't missed a beat. We got him on a gallop program and a breeze program, and he's done really well. Just continues to look well in the flesh, have a good appetite, train with enthusiasm. So, have I seen any big changes in him from 2 to 3? Not necessarily, but he's kind of picked up where he left off in the Street Sense, and I've been really pleased with that.
About 2.5 weeks after he won the Street Sense, Jim Bernard, the owner of Pin Oak Stud, passed away after a brief illness, and I can imagine that a victory in the Holy Bull today would be extra emotional for the Connections.
Yeah, certainly. You know, it's been a really tough couple months for the family and everybody at Pin Oak and everybody that knew and loved Mr. Bernhardt. And, I was very fortunate to know him for a short time, and he gave me a shot early in my career, and I'll forever be grateful for that. And, seeing a horse like Incredible give them some excitement and potentially be on the Derby trail would be very well deserved for everybody at Pin Oak. They do things the right way. They put a great team in place. They do a fantastic job at the sales, and now they're starting to get some homebreds onto the racetrack. So they're a really great outfit to train for, and I'm very honored to be involved with them.
Riley, you've recently eclipsed 100 victories in your very young training career, and you've learned so much, not just working with your Hall of Fame father, but even going out on your own and the things you've learned since going out on your own. What things have you learned that are helping you as you make your way down what could be the road to the Kentucky Derby? At least that's where you hope to end up.
Sure. There's certainly a lot of pressure that comes along with, working with horses leading up to big races, and in particular the Derby trail. But I was lucky enough to be around some Derby prospects and Derby winners with my dad. And, I think you just really need to use a lot of common sense. You don't want to make any rash decisions or knee-jerk reactions. You just want to, kind of just use the knowledge that got you there and almost just stay out of the horse's way. I mean, the good horses are pretty easy to train. You make sure they're happy and healthy and kind of let them do the work in their training and in their races. So, you want to be involved and make good decisions, but you almost want to take yourself out of the equation a little bit and not get in their way.
What was it like watching your dad receive his 5th Eclipse Award as Outstanding Trainer last week?
I was very proud of he and his team. I mean, they work so hard, as everyone else in the industry does, day in and day out. And, just a testament to their operation. And I think it's pretty cool. My dad won a couple Eclipse Awards in the mid-'90s. One in 2011, I think it was, and then so far a couple this decade in the 2020s. So I think it's really interesting that he's been able to win all of his over the course of 30 years. I think it's just a testament to the longevity and the high standard that they put out there, and to all the owners and the staff members, it's pretty cool that they've been able to win those accolades over the course of several decades. Because I know a lot of times when trainers, jockeys, etc., win multiple Eclipse Awards, it's in one chunk of time, and so I think it's really cool that it's been a bit spread out over several decades for my old man.
Yeah, 30 years. It was 1995 when he won his first Eclipse Award as Outstanding Trainer, and then 30 years later here in 2025, still doing it at that championship level in 2025. Just remarkable. And now he gets to look forward to horses, in particular Sovereignty, who's going to be the headliner, the horse of the year in 2026, and that's pretty cool too. Maybe down the road, if Incredible develops the way you hope he will, maybe in the fall you take a shot at a horse like Sovereignty with him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. You want to, have horses that can put you on that stage, and you're able to compete in those races with those types of horses. He's certainly got miles to go before he gets to that horse's level, but, we can dream and we can hope.
Yeah, he breaks from the inside post today, too. With his running style, that shouldn't be an issue, should it?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, some people I think he's kind of a dead closer, but actually in his maiden race he sat right in behind the pace, and they were kind of clicking along, going a one-turn mile. And I think in the street sense, he broke, about a length slower than he probably should have. So it kind of put him behind the 8-ball a little bit, and he was forced to come from way off of it. But I think with a clean break going, short run into that first turn, the horse, I would imagine, be, sort of right in behind the pace setters. So, we'll leave plan A, B, and C up to Jaime and hope it all works out.
Riley, before I let you go, how about another Pin Oak star that you have in your stable? At World Beater, is he coming back again in 2026?
Sure is. Yeah, he's in training at the farm at Pin Oak. We gave him a good break after his win in Virginia in September, and it was a much-deserved break. He had been running since the previous fall, and we're hoping that he has a big second half of 2026. There's, should be some pretty prestigious races on the docket for him if we see an improvement from 3 to 4.
Well, Riley, it'd be incredible if you can find a way to pull off a victory today in the Holy Bull. And don't think that the irony of a Mott winning the Holy Bull Stakes isn't lost on me. Holy Bull was my all-time favorite horse, and of course I remember the day he locked horns with Cigar down there at Gulfstream Park. Holy Bull was injured. Cigar went on to that incredible win streak that we know, and I wish we could have seen those two continue that rivalry or build into what would have been an incredible rivalry over the years to come, but it didn't happen, and it would certainly be ironic if you can pull off a victory today in the Holy Bull Stakes.
Well, we're going to do our very best. We're happy to be in contention and hope we're excited later this afternoon.
All right, buddy. Good luck today.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Riley Mott here on HRRN. Always very generous with his time. We appreciate that. Incredible. One of the favorites, one of the horses to beat in the Holy Bull Stakes coming up at Gulfstream. Should be a fantastic renewal of the Holy Bull this afternoon in South Florida. When I come back, it's time for this week's Kentucky Bred Conversation. The series begins here this morning. I welcome Chauncey Morris, who has been around Kentucky racing a very long time, the executive director of the KTOB. He's with me next to kick things off. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Coolmore Stallion Corniche, a $1.5 million OBS April sale topper by Quality Road and a two-time Grade 1 winner.
But it's Corniche. He's just too good. Corniche wins the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Voted champion 2-year-old male following his win in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, it's no surprise his 72 yearlings sold for an average of over $170,000, with a top-price colt of $725,000 and a top-price filly of $525,000. Corniche standing for only $15,000 at Coolmore's Ashford Stud.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Track needs some place to go with program training. He's in the red and white, but he's got no place to go. He's trying to follow test score through as they reach the top of the stretch. 3/4, 110 and 2. Program training got through with the rail skimming ride, and he's up to challenge for the lead. Down the center of the racetrack, Almendaris is charging hard. In between horses, test score. Far outside, One Stripe is erupting late. One Stripe tries to reach test score. Test score, One Stripe. It's Grand Motion 1-2. It's test score to win the Pegasus Turf. The South African One Stripe ran his heart out, but ran out of racetrack in 147 flat.
That's Pete Aiello with the call of the Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational last Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Test score joining Skippy Longstocking and capturing Grade 1 races, both Test score and Skippy Longstocking bred in the bluegrass state of Kentucky. And that leads us perfectly into our first Kentucky Bred Conversation of 2026. Don't forget it pays to race and breed in the Bluegrass. A record $20 million in awards was paid to breeders participating in the Kentucky Thoroughbred Breeders Incentive Fund program last year for racing in 2024. And who better to kick off this series? We're going to bring you this series over the course of the next few months. Each and every week you'll hear a Kentucky Bred Conversation. And who better than Chauncey Morris, the Executive Director of the Kentucky Thoroughbred Association and the Kentucky Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders. Chauncey, welcome aboard, my friend.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. And, you know, we just heard that call of test score, and I mentioned Skippy Longstocking. Man, you had to be sitting back just proud as a peacock watching all of that unfold.
It's all been fantastic results across the board. It doesn't matter what condition or class, or even overseas, our horses are doing well.
Yeah, it's nothing new. This is a storyline that has unfolded year in and year out for several years. But now you look at the success of racing in Kentucky and the amount of money that's involved for people competing in the Bluegrass State. And, man, you should be really proud.
Well, we are. I mean, we're building, just as you say, when you say it's nothing new, yeah, we've been racing in Kentucky for over 200 years. But the part that is new, obviously, is how we have used historical horse racing and coupled that with what we believe to be the most competitive racing philosophy. That we've never had restricted racing here in Kentucky ever. When the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund was created in 1978, they took pains to make sure that we would never have restricted racing. We would obviously, if the Kentucky horse won, that it would be further compensated. But a really important thing, all you have to do is look at the numbers. Last year, KTDF, $69 million was offered, $59 million was paid out. So that's what we're really, really proud of, that since 2020, our all sources handle has increased, actually, while everybody else is contracted. And we frankly believe that that is one of the big parts. There's so many, but that's really one of the big things that make our racing product attractive to horse players.
Don't you find, too, Chauncey, that this all kind of goes hand in hand? And what I mean by that is when you have higher purses, you then get bigger field sizes because everybody wants to run in those races. And because of that, you end up having higher wagering and handle because you have bigger fields.
Yeah, generally speaking, that's true when you've not had restricted racing programs. I don't want to harp too much on that, but the tracks have done their part. The racing offices, the horsemen, racehorse owners have all done their part. That it's staggering to look that from March to November every single year, we have a horse and training population of 5,500 thoroughbreds just in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, which is truly unbelievable. Hats off to the track. That what a lot of people, I think, don't know, what you certainly do know and appreciate, is because we're the registrar of the KTDF program, in statute, the tracks can use their KTDF allotment for marketing purposes, approved marketing purposes from the Kentucky Horse Racing and Gaming Corporation. Has to go through the advisory committee first for the fund, and then has to be ratified or confirmed by the KHRGC. And, you know, we think that that's one of the other things that's setting us apart. The tracks are doing the heavy lifting of trying to get more information out to horse players. So yes, it is absolutely, you're absolutely right when you say absolutely the big purses, but there's a whole lot that's going on in the background as well with everyone pulling together.
I could tell from the tone of your voice as we started this conversation, and you were talking about how proud you were of everything that's been accomplished, but I could tell that there is still a lot more to accomplish going forward. So what does the future look like? At least what do you hope it looks like going forward?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. Because there's so much inside baseball and in racing, the economics of it are important. It's really important for the track operators to be making money. That's how they reinvest back into infrastructure. Then there are some statutory things that have been done by the General Assembly that allows the associations here to avail themselves of more infrastructure dollars. So, you're going to see more investment. You already have seen investment, a lot of investment on front side, back side, track surfaces. You'll see more of that. Honestly, if you look, there's millions of things that collectively the industry wants to do. But what we have the opportunity to do right now is make investments for the next 100 years. And when I say that, we're very, very cognizant that business cycles change. Historical horse racing is very successful now. It hasn't been the only evolution of wagering that horse racing has been the custodians of. I think that there will be further iterations of wagering that hopefully will have a seat at the table and be able to control our destiny of. One thing that's hugely important, that before historical racing took off, American racing always knew about the racino model, and they know about casinos. Well, the casinos, you're betting against the house, and the margins are much, much bigger. Last year, when over $9 billion was wagered on historical horse racing terminals, $8.1 billion was returned back to the bettor. That doesn't happen when you're in Vegas or so many other places now where they just have VLT machines or some sort of electronic gaming devices. Doesn't happen whenever you're involved on any sort of bookmaking schemes. That $900 million is after everything is paid, after free play is done, after everything is done. That's what's funding the industry. So we don't have this huge asset compared to what other states started with. We've just, over time, made it a bit more competitive, and it's generating real dollars for our industry. It generated $75 million directly to the general fund last year. To the Commonwealth of Kentucky, sports wagering generated another $54 million that racing doesn't get a cut of, but the racetracks are the custodians of, so the racetracks are profitable. That in turn leads to them being able to invest back in the infrastructure. It's all a virtuous cycle, if you will.
Yeah, a lot of pieces to that pie. I was going to ask you about the sports wagering aspect. Obviously, historical horse racing is the catalyst for everything and all the success, but there are other things, as you mentioned. Maybe down the road it looks completely different 10, 15, 20 years down the road. What have you identified as some other components that racing might be able to benefit from, racing in Kentucky would benefit from down the road?
I'm not going to be evasive. I'm just going to say that, it's no secret that a lot of people, New York is going to explore being able to wager on racing within the sports wagering environment.
Yeah.
Other people have talked about fixed odds wagering. Other people have talked about, the things like Polymarket and Kalshi, the predictive markets. They're basically running like a betting exchange. Those are three things that could be extremely disruptive to racing. And so what we as an industry would have to do collectively is to really work with our legislature, see if those are good fits for us. And it's everything to do with the pricing. The KTDF program, we get half of the parimutuel tax that goes to KTDF, up to $45 million. beyond $45 million into the fund. It halves again what the tax rate is. A lot of people don't realize that when you're racing a non-Kentucky bred in Kentucky, you are also racing for the association purse money that is also generated by ADWs, intertrack wagering, on-track wagering, and historical horse racing to the tune of 14.5% net commission. So, all those things, they're dollars and cents economic issues. And this is a dollars and cents economic industry that we're always having to look through that prism, and that's something that I think Kentucky has done historically well and will continue to do.
Well, I can tell you this, Chauncey. People everywhere in racing are talking about the Kentucky program. And I'll give you an example. I spent an hour with Jimmy Jerkins yesterday on my Trainer Talk program. And he brought up the fact that there is so much money available in Kentucky now and how it's kind of changed the landscape of the industry as we know it.
It has, no question. I think that, we also have a breeding industry here, and we've always had a big domestic and international export market. Mm-hmm. There are other bright spots in American racing right now. I think that the investment that's going on in the Empire State, I think that'll be hugely important to American racing. It would surprise a lot of people that we speak with our friends in the THA and Florida and also in California constantly about these types of things and how their industries can also remain more competitive. But I mean, what we have right now in Kentucky is so hugely important that just some numbers that I like numbers. I think bettors like numbers also, right? So the starters, so we always talk about that $6.5 billion economic impact and 60,494 jobs. Well, those figures were from 2018. The industry here in Kentucky has changed so much that starters in Kentucky racing in 18 were 5,900, and last year they were over 7,000. And all sources handle in 18 1.06 billion, last year 1.8 billion, so a 74% increase. That's huge. But in order to continue to be that way, we're going to have to use that same rigid discipline on looking at the economics of the sport to see how we are going to remain competitive. And other jurisdictions that do that as well will also remain competitive.
Chauncey, these Kentucky Bred Conversation segments, which, as I mentioned, will be part of the program over the next several months, this was your brainchild. When you and I talked about different things we could do together, you said, hey, how about if we heard from the individuals that love racing and competing in Kentucky, benefit from it, and even Kentucky breds themselves, like a guy like Brad Cox and Will Walden, Elliott Walden, all of these individuals who were bred in Kentucky and have been part of the fabric their entire life. And I loved it, and we started it as a 5-minute segment. It's been so popular, we've expanded it now to an entire segment here on the program every week. And I want to thank you publicly for all of your support, my friend, because these are really fun to do. And I can't wait to visit with so many of the individuals that are involved in making our sport a success in the bluegrass.
We're grateful to have the opportunity, and glad that you and Michelle and your team have done that. And those are the men and women that make the sport go.
Yeah,
it's less important, frankly, to listen to a paid talking head like myself, and far more important to listen to the horsemen and women that frankly get it done and put on the show. And we traded some text messages, and your lead-in talked about the Breeders' Incentive Fund. That has been a hugely successful iteration of that business cycle that we were talking about that came in a time when Kentucky Breeding and Racing actually wasn't performing well, and we had to do something smaller in order to encourage our broodmare population to stay put. And so I'd highly encourage you, I'm saying this publicly, you already said that you're going to do it, to talk to the likes of Drew Connors, or Jamie Eads at some point from a regulator's perspective, because they're the ones that are running the Breeders' Incentive Fund. But the people that we have such a deep bench of professionals in this state, both people that, just as you said, like myself, that were bred in Kentucky, but also people that have been attracted to being part of our horse industry here, that put on our show every single day. Those are the stories that need telling. Those are the things that our horse players and fan base, I think, appreciate far more than any sort of editorialized copy, if you will.
Chauncey, appreciate the visit this morning, my friend, and looking forward to the following segments over the next few months. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Chauncey Morris with our very first Kentucky Bred Conversation of 2026. You know, the KBIF has provided more than $250 million to breeders of Kentucky Breds winning eligible races worldwide since the program was implemented in 2005. For more information on racing and breeding in Kentucky, visit KentuckyBreds.com. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win with Kentucky Breds. Up next, I'll take a look at a historical date in racing history or two as it applies to this weekend and get you ready for Hour 3. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
All over America, people are taking the National Radon Test. Have you? Excuse me, have you heard of radon?
Is that a gas?
Is it something that comes up out the ground or something?
Well, it's like poison gas.
Something dangerous that you're supposed to check on to make sure it's not in your home.
Now it's your turn. Answer true or false. Radon is a radioactive gas. True, radon is a radioactive gas. True or false? The Office of the Surgeon General recommends that all homes be tested for radon. True, your home should be tested.
I didn't know that, no.
True or false, radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer. True.
True, I didn't know that.
Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer. Answer true or false. Homes with radon problems can be fixed. True. Homes with radon problems can be fixed.
So what do you do about it?
I'm going to dial the number and call.
1-800-SOS-RADON.
If I don't take care of it, nobody else will.
Keep your family safe from radon. Call now.
1-800-SOS-RADON.
James Brown and Bill Cowher welcoming you back to Dennis Melvin's house. It's time for the Midnight Snack Run.
This is one tricky obstacle course. Sticking to healthy habits in this kitchen is going to take focus and determination, but it can be done, JB.
He's already entered the snack part of the course, and he's eyeballing a jar of chocolate candy.
That is tempting right off the start.
Uh-oh, he's reaching, Bill, but he pushes it away.
Great stiff arm.
He's approaching a plate of delicious-looking iced cookies.
Oh, Dennis, you only want one of those.
He blows right by him for the apple.
Oh, the fridge. It's make or break time, JB.
He stares down some rich-looking treats. Uh-oh, looks like he's headed for the soda. Wait, he jukes left, grabs the water bottle, and shuts the door with his elbow in record time.
Unbelievable move. I gotta see that again.
And he's out. He even turned off the light.
That's the way you execute a midnight snack run.
Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Check out the all-new horseracingradio.net. All the same great horse racing radio content in a new, easy-to-use design. Listen to all of our shows streaming live or access the replays anytime. See our schedule, sign up for our newsletter, download our latest podcasts, and so much more. It's all on our website at horseracingradio.net. That's horseracingradio.net. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back. Hour 2 coming to a close. Hour 3 straight ahead kicks off with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Ashley Anderson will have 3 races for you to watch and wager on with TwinSpires this afternoon. Not much time for historical dates in racing history, but I'll give you a couple real quick. January 30th, 1981, yesterday, the day that jockey Julie Crone rode her first race ever. She finished second by 3 lengths in a 6-furlong sprint for $3,500 maiden claimers at Tampa Bay Downs. And today, January 31st, 1958, jockey Bill Shoemaker notched his 3,000th career win. He did it aboard Eternal Pair in the 8th race at Santa Anita Park. Well, if you missed any portion of the first 2 hours of the programs, boy, did you miss a lot. Gary Capuano was here. Jake Ballis was here. Don Little Jr., Riley Mott, and you just heard Chauncey Morris in the previous segment. Check out the podcast on our website and your favorite podcast platform. But don't go anywhere. If your local station is leaving us, keep listening to the third hour of the program nationwide on SiriusXM, streaming at horseracingradio.net. Hour 3 straight ahead right after this 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Alpha leads by 3 with a 16th out. Then Spite City and How Do I Win? And Alpha has won the Withers as the big favorite here.
The leader is Smarty Jones. 2 down automatic second. Pro Prado to the outside. They drive for the wire. Smarty Jones leads it. Here's 2 down automatic. Pro Prado. Smarty Jones continues undefeated, wins the Southwest by 3/4.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Now with an 1/8 of a mile to go, Holy Bull has led every step of the way and has the commanding 4.5 now 5-lane lead. The battle will be for second. Halo's image ride the rails and go for Gin. A dramatic performance this afternoon by Holy Bull.
Barbaro reaches for the final furlong, and Barbaro leads by a length and a half. Great Point is charging from the back of the pack. Barbaro is in front. Great Point tries to pass them all, but he can't pass Barbaro. The Holy Bull Stakes goes to Barbaro.
Now here's Mike Penna.
You knew I was going to have a Holy Bull clip in there somewhere, didn't you? The Holy Bull Stakes being renewed at Gulfstream Park in honor of the greatest horse of all time, the great Holy Bull. We remember him today, and we have been remembering Holy Bull and the Holy Bull contenders in this year's renewal throughout the entire morning. We've been talking about that. We've talked about the action over in Dubai last weekend, and of course talking about racing all over the country and weather affecting so much. Of course, Aqueduct canceling and so many racetracks saying, okay, it's too cold to race and erring on the side of caution, and rightfully so. I mean, these temperatures are brutal. I hope everybody's staying warm. All I can do is bring you to the third hour of the show, and I'm going to do that for you right now. Welcome back to the program. This is the Equine Forum. It's presented by TwinSpires. I'm Mike Penna, getting ready for Ashley Anderson to kick it off with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Kurt Becker's Stroll Through Racing History coming up at 10:20, and at 10:30, Dale Roman's Tim Wilkin with I Ask, They Answer. But without further ado, here she is, Ashley Anderson. It's the TwinSpires Triple Play. Good morning, Ashley.
Good morning.
Staying warm?
I'm trying to. It's not easy these days.
Well, I know it will make people feel a little better. I know you selected races from a couple of tracks, Tampa Bay Downs and Gulfstream in Florida, but I know it will really warm people up this morning if you can give them a few winners.
Well, I will certainly try to do that. I've got a few big prices and a pretty square price in one of the races I've selected as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. We're going to start with Gulfstream Park, and we'll kick it off with race number 7. Then we're going to go to Tampa for race number 9 and back to Gulfstream for race 11. So we will do this in order of the designated post times. And the first post time is 3:15. The final one, 5:15 for the last race of the Triple Play. So we have a 2-hour block of a couple of power hours, if you will, to get people ready for the races this afternoon. And that 7th race at Gulfstream is a 1 3/8 turf event, optional claimer, 35 purse of $86,000, and should be a good one. A lot of ways to go in here. How'd you see it?
Yeah, there were a lot of ways to go, and I thought it was a good chance to go for a little bit of a bigger price here. And I did want to mention real quickly, we do have a promo going on at Gulfstream Park today. Races 5 through 12 are part of our $10,000 Road to the Kentucky Derby win ladder. So opted and placed a $10 or more single win wager, and the more races you win, the bigger your share of a $10,000 prize pool. So this is where you want to try to take a chance and maybe go for a horse that other players are not going to play with that win bet. And I went with number 9, White Palomino at 8-1. On the morning line. This field is mostly made up of off-the-pace runners, but White Palomino is typically up front, or at least in the past when he did his best running, was more forwardly placed. He's going up against his stablemate Durand, who's 2-1 on the morning line for Chad Brown as well. But Durand is coming off a narrow loss and an allowance optional claimer, going a mile and 3/16. And overall, he's 1 for 5, broke his maiden just 2 starts back. But White Palomino, I thought was interesting and a much better price. He also has just 1 win lifetime, but he has 2 runner-up finishes by the margin of a head in the Grade 2 Pennine Ridge, going 1 1/8 of a mile at Aqueduct back in 2024, and then the Grade 1 Belmont Derby going 1 3/16 of a mile. And his maiden win also came at 1 3/16 of a mile at Keeneland when stalking along the inside and rating off the early pace setter. So I thought, looking at his previous class and how he's performed against Graded 6 company, it was smaller fields in those graded stakes, but he showed me a lot of potential in the past. He's going to have Tyler Gaffalione aboard, who's 2 for 8, paired up with Chad Brown the last 2 months, 15% winner at Gulfstream Park. And the fact that a lot of these horses are coming from off the pace, but I expect White Palomino to be a little bit closer to the early speed. I thought he was a good price, 8-1. I'm going to play him over Durand and our morning line favorite, who's coming off a 10-month layoff, breaking just to the outside of White Palomino.
Yeah, that without for Graham Motion, we know Graham Motion red hot right now. He settled the first 2 finishers in last week's Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational, and we know he can get these types of horses ready. Doesn't have a lot of things to go by if you're handicapping this race, right? When you look at his past performances, there just isn't much information there, and that can be confusing for people because his only 2 tries have come overseas in France. What do you do? How do you analyze a horse like this, Ashley?
So I try to find what information I can, and it was very difficult if you go to, the racing form and try to read the line on what his past performance was when he ran at St. Cloud, or if you can find that replay, I always try to search for that information. But if I am not able to find too much to help me decide what to do with one of these overseas shippers, what I'm looking at is the fact that he has 2 starts. He started off on the all-weather, and he won that race going 1 mile and 3/16. So he is a long-distance runner. But then his 1 start over the turf was over soft turf. So to me, that's a variable. We're going to get something close to firm, I would think, at post time. So I don't know how he's going to run over firm turf. He finished third by 2 lengths when running over soft turf on March 16th of last year. Coming off this lengthy layoff, he does get to race on Lasix for the first time, and that's a 22% winning move for Graham Motion. Like you mentioned, he's doing really well at Gulfstream Park as well. John Velasquez is aboard. But I want to try to beat this horse at such a short price for the fact that he's coming off this lengthy layoff, and I've only seen him race over soft turf, so I don't know what he's going to do over firm turf. And I feel like a lot of times you have these horses that do better when there's a little bit more give in the turf when they're running overseas, and then they come over and they get something close to firm turf and they don't necessarily take to it. So at a 9-5 price, I would rather try to take a shot with something like White Palomino at 8-1, or another horse in this field who has run more recently or has run over this track or has run over firm turf.
Yeah, that was outstanding analysis, and that's one way that you can dive into some of these horses that come from overseas where they don't have a lot to go by, especially a lightly raced horse like this, a 4-year-old gelding that's only had 2 career starts. Here's the way I do it, Ashley. I don't get into it the way you got into it there. I look at Graham Motion. I look at Hall of Famer John Velasquez getting the leg up, and I go, okay, contender.
Well, that's fair, too. I mean, I won't knock
that's keeping
that
it very
analysis
simple.
either.
Yeah, that's keeping it very simple. But no, you're doing it the right way without definitely a player, 9-5 on the morning line. But for Ashley, she's going to try to beat without, and everybody else with White Palomino just to the inside in post number 9, 8-1 on the morning line for Chad Brown and Tyler Gaffalione. That gets us started with the first leg of the TwinSpires triple play on this Saturday morning. Ashley, the second leg of the triple play comes from Tampa Bay Downs. That's race number 9, post time of 4:25 Eastern. It's the Grade 3 Endeavor Stakes, which is 1 mile and 1/16 on the turf. Who wins that one?
So I ended up taking us over to Tampa because we do have 2 tournaments going on at TwinSpires, a $600 KDBC qualifier and a $100 Tampa Bay Downs challenge. So I thought it was a good chance to go highlight Tampa Bay Downs, who also has 2 graded stakes today. And so I looked at the grade 3 Endeavor in race 9, and I liked number 5 Aussie Girl at 7-2. Now, this is the second choice on the morning line. I did my handicapping before the morning line, and Candy Quest is your 3-1 morning line favorite. But Aussie Girl, this is another case where a lot of the field comes from off the pace. So I like that Aussie Girl normally is more forwardly placed as well. I think the 10 probably gets the early lead, and I'm looking for Aussie Girl to sit right off the pace setter in the early stages. Now, last out, she was in the Suwannee River. She was pulled up by her rider, Tyler Gaffalione, in that race on the first turn because she bumped a rival and drifted out sharply. I'm going to draw a line through that race, but she's eligible to improve. Second start back off a layoff. She won 3 back at a mile in a non-graded stakes at Aqueduct when sitting right off the early speed. She has a win actually over Saffron Moon at Keeneland, and Saffron Moon followed up that runner-up effort to Aussie Girl to win last year's edition of the Endeavor. So a lot of things are lining up here for me. Ben Curtis picking up the mount, an excellent turf rider. So I thought 7-2 was reasonable, and hopefully I get something close to that at post time.
Yeah. Candy Quest, Mark Casse breaking from the rail. Sonny Leone has the assignment. This is a horse that has been knocking heads with some really good competition, especially in her last race where she ran in the QE2 Cup at Keeneland. That was last October. She makes her 4-year-old debut coming up in the Endeavor Stakes. What is it about Candy Quest that makes you believe she can be beatable?
So she is a really good filly, and I had her kind of circled as, someone to play underneath. Mm-hmm. I want to try to beat her one because she's going up against a lot of other late runners, and she does have a really good closing kick. She put in a 107 late pace rating 2 back at Kentucky Downs when she was just overtaken by Fion in the stretch, and right at the finish was beaten a half length but had a lead at the top of the stretch. She's really done her best running. I mean, her only time that she didn't run well was over good or yielding turf, and I expect her to run a very tough race here, but I thought she was beatable as the morning line favorite here, just for the fact that, one, I don't like playing favorites if I can make a case against them, but she is getting a rider switch too. So, she's mostly been paired up with Jose Ortiz, which Mark Casse and Jose Ortiz are constantly pairing up. But getting that new rider, and I mean, Sonny Leone's doing very well at Tampa Bay Downs as well. But I thought, you know what? I can make a case for other horses in here, so if I can play against a favorite, I'm going to try to do it.
Yeah, look for the value, and that's what Aussie Girl will potentially offer. It's 7-2 on the morning line. Will Walden, the trainer, Ben Curtis, the jockey. All right, let's move on to the final leg that you've chosen for us this morning. That is the 11th at Gulfstream. We go back across the state to Fort Lauderdale, and let's take a look at the 11th race at Gulfstream. How'd you see that one?
So in the Swedish Chant, I wanted to go with a long shot, and I will say if you're playing that late pick 5, I would spread pretty deep in this leg. It's very competitive, but I saw a lot of upside and a really good price on number 3 Brat Pack at 12-1, one of the more lightly raced fillies in this field, who made her debut at Laurel going a mile and was fractious at the gate. Early stages, she found a trip along the inner rail to the stretch, and she ended up rallying to finish second with a 90 brisnet late pace rating. So showed a good closing kick there. Then moved over to Gulfstream, ran the 1 1/16th mile distance of the Swedish Chant in the maiden special weight, and sat a little bit closer to the early speed that day. Was 4th early on, and then showed that strong closing kick again to get up top of the stretch and held on to win by a neck. Had an 84 brisnet speed figure and a 100 late pace rating, and she's going to keep the same rider, Jorge Ruiz, and then this is a Grand Motion runner I am going to go with, like we've already talked about. He's doing great at Gulfstream. He's a 22% winner with horses coming off a maiden win and a 20% winner in non-graded stakes. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a shot at 12-1, but I'm also going to include some other horses in the late pick 5 because this is a very, very wide open race, and I think you can make a case for a lot of horses in here. I'm definitely going to include, you have to respect Sister Troyen, the 8 at 2-1, but also the 11 Spirit Doll. I mean, these are the morning line favorites, but they do look very, very tough, and I think Sister Troyen's going to potentially get the early lead. Actually, the 8 or the 11 could go for the early lead, and I think they're horses you have to respect, but I also thought you could make a case for the 2 surprise ending with Brendan Walsh and Tyler Gaffalione. But for me, the win bet, I'm going to go with the 12-1, take a chance on a big price.
Yeah. When you mentioned the late pick 5, Ashley, when you're sitting down to structure your pick 5 tickets, are you looking for a single or 2 before you say, okay, I'm able to attack this particular bet the way I want to?
I definitely try to look for spots where I can single, and I think at Gulfstream, if I'm going to single, it's going to be in race 12, the Holy Bull, because to me it comes down to 3 horses, Incredible, Nearly, and Cannoneer. But Cannoneer, I think, is going to be able to get an easy lead. Looks like a very, very strong contender. People have been talking about this horse since his win at Churchill Downs, was absolutely dominant. So if I single, I'm going to go with the 5 in race 12. So singling in the final leg. But I think it's definitely, you want to try to single if you can to keep your ticket price down. And for me, I do try to look for those spots, but I'm not going to just force it either. If I thought, for me, Nearly is the morning line favorite. If I'm going to play 2 horses, I prefer to do something where I play against the favorite, but then I'll play Cannoneer and say, I think Incredible has a decent shot as well. So I'm removing that morning line favorite where other people might be including in their tickets, and I would potentially play 2 in that final leg. But honestly, I feel very confident with run style and Cannoneer's dominance that he's the single I would use in my late pick 5.
Yeah, he certainly looked good in that maiden win at Churchill, drawing off to win by more than 7 lengths for Brad Cox. We'll see if he continues that upward trajectory later today in the Holy Bull. News coming out Thursday afternoon, the disappointing news that Ted Noffey, the juvenile champion, has been taken out of consideration for the Kentucky Derby. He's going to be off for about 90 days, Todd Pletcher said, and they'll bring him back and start training again in early May. Who's the heir apparent now, Ashley? Who do we look to pick up the baton and run with it?
It could be Cannoneer after this weekend, but yeah, there was very disappointing news to hear about Ted Noffey. I'm always kind of one to shy away from horses that are bringing in all the hype early on the trail. Yeah. And he did nothing wrong. He was unbeaten and now has to hit the bench for quite a while. And it would have been fun to see him continue along the Derby trail. But I think Cannoneer you got to look out for. I have had my eye on Mob for Brian Lynch, who ran really well at Churchill. I'm curious to see if he's going to end up being more of a sprinter miler, but he has the potential in his pedigree to go longer. So he's one I've been looking out for. And I'm sure you'll get a bigger price on Derby Day if he's in the field. But Todd Pletcher has a couple that are still going to be on this Derby trail. Nearly is one of them, class president. Also running at Gulfstream Park, who was in the Kentucky Derby Future Wager Pool 3. So there are a few for Pletcher's barn. Honestly, Baffert's barn is a little cold to me this year. I'm not sure if we're going to see a standout from his barn, but there's, on this Gulfstream Park card, definitely some horses to watch for that could end up being big contenders down the line for the Derby.
Yeah, Todd had that long streak of Derby starters snapped last year. He'll look to start a new streak here, and it seems like he's intent on doing it with some major players, too. It should be fun to watch over the coming months. Ashley, really appreciate it. Going to walk through your top 3 again before we wrap things up. Gulfstream Race 7 will kick off the TwinSpires triple play, and you'll take number 9, White Palomino, 8-1 on the morning line. We'll go to Tampa Race 9 for the second leg, number 5, Aussie Girl at 7-2. And then in Race 11 at Gulfstream, number 3, Brat Pack at 12-1 on the morning line. Good value there, your top pick. So value all around in each of those 3 selections, and really appreciate it, Ashley, and hope they all run well.
I hope so, too. And hopefully we'll start to see some warmer weather in Kentucky and the rest of the country so we can have some more tracks running next time we talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk again soon.
Same to you.
All right, Ashley Anderson with that TwinSpires triple play. Remember to play each of the races we just discussed, and every race you're going to play this weekend with TwinSpires. Well, if you missed the trivia question, our Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question that we gave out earlier in the program, I'm going to give it to you one more time. The answer comes your way in the final segment of the show right around 10:55 Eastern. In 1919, Sir Barton won the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness Stakes before going on to win the Withers, and then the Belmont and the Triple Crown. Name the other famous horse to accomplish this feat. Get your mojo working. The answer coming your way, again, right around 10:55 Eastern. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History, coming up next. Dale and Tim, still to come, 10:30 Eastern. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
When it's time to paint the fences and barns, think Farm Paint. At Farm Paint, you get the industry's best coatings and paints factory direct at low, low prices. Farm Paint is your source for quality paints, roof coatings, dustless arena footings, and more. You can purchase online or drop into a Farm Paint store near you with locations in heart of bluegrass country at 700 Phillips Lane in Lexington, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, and Sandusky, Ohio. Buy factory direct and save at farmpaint.com. That's farmpaint.com.
Fans, prepare for a terrific weekend coming up here at Santa Anita Park. We have 9 big races today at Santa Anita Park and some terrific wagering opportunities. There are 2 Pick 4s, 2 Pick 5s, a $3 late Pick 3, the Sunset Pick 6, and the $5 late Daily Double, all with low 15% takeouts. And the ever-popular Coast to Coast Pick 5 that always has terrific payouts and has that also low 15% takeout. Plus, don't forget the traditional $2 Pick 6. My best bet today comes in race number 3. It is number 2, With Love, trained by the outstanding trainer, John Sadler. I think you can bet her with confidence today. You can also be confident that we will have some great events coming up, like the Smorgasbord Dumpling Day event on February 7th. We also have 3 big graded stakes races that day, including the Grade 2 D. Wayne Lucas Stakes. You can get all the details about all our great events at santaanita.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. The noted author and humorist Mark Twain was famous for saying that reports of his death had been greatly exaggerated. Much the same could be said of a racetrack, which was rumored to be shutting its doors, but instead has made a comeback. That track is Turf Paradise. Situated about 30 minutes north of downtown Phoenix, Arizona at the time it was built in 1955, Turf Paradise was the brainchild of businessman Walt Kluwer, a native of Idaho who recalled riding one of his dad's ranch horses in match races as a child. Kluwer later moved to Phoenix and took a job as a clerk, eventually owned a millwork which specialized in making cabinets, countertops, tabletops, and the like, and made his fortune. Built at a cost of $2 million, equating to $25 million today, Turf Paradise was built on a parcel of land within 1,500 acres total purchased by Kluwer for development, extending from Cave Creek to Black Canyon Highway. The racing strip itself was a 1-mile oval set in a sweeping semicircle of hills, while the infield was described as palm-studded, lush, and flower-laden with 4 sparkling lagoons. As for Kluwer's decision to purchase 1,500 acres, far beyond what was necessary to build a racetrack, he had concerns about the rapid northward thrust of metropolitan Phoenix residential districts. His vision was for shops, stores, restaurants, and hotels to surround Turf Paradise, believing such a plan would do more to help the track thrive than being surrounded by neighbors who might or might not like horse racing. Turf Paradise, declared one newspaper headline, was Arizona's racing dream come true. It was hoped that trainers would come there to spend the winter in order to escape harsh conditions in the east. As one columnist put it, on opening day, a clear call of the bugle will behold a new era in great thoroughbred racing. While there were skeptics, mainly because the track was a 20 to 30-minute drive from downtown Phoenix over some bumpy and dusty roads, a number of locals saw Turf Paradise as a chance for Phoenix and Arizona to showcase the advantages of the region. As one of the directors of the new track stated in the Arizona Republic, we have winter sunshine, fertile soil, and fine water. Even so, there were concerns that Turf Paradise would not be ready for opening day, scheduled for January 4th, 1956. Agreements with general contractor King Construction were not finalized until July of 1955, and a combination of rain on the one hand and a concrete worker strike on the other had created concern, if not panic, by the holidays. Kluwer, though, was undaunted, saying, "The cake is in place, it just needs the frosting." He added, "We will be ready for opening day, even if I have to hire 1,000 four-handed workers." Still, the last-minute challenges were many. The drapes in the clubhouse had been installed upside down, made evident by an inverted image of the bird of paradise. A wall would gleam with a fresh coat of paint, only for plumbers to arrive and draw diagrams on the wall in an effort to align pipes and fixtures in a way which would satisfy building codes. But when the gates opened for the first time at Turf Paradise at 10 a.m. on Saturday, January 7th, 1956, just 3 days later than originally intended, everything was ready. There would be 9 races, ranging in distance from 5.5 furlongs to 1.25 miles, and there would be plenty else to dazzle the eyes of the 7,500 spectators who had arrived at the southeast corner of 19th Avenue and Bell Road, northwest of Phoenix, and poured through the turnstiles. Architect William Emmett Burke Jr. had utilized a combination of Spanish design long associated with the Southwest and ultra-modern construction. There was a clubhouse which could accommodate 800 guests, a grandstand which seated 5,000, and a parking lot which could hold 6,000 vehicles. The clubhouse was described as sheer luxury, with deep pile rugs and swivel chairs. In the stable area was a dining hall which included a television and a pool table for the horsemen. The grandstand included box seats on the mezzanine level, 125 boxes total with 8 seats in each, offering accommodations for as many as 1,000 racegoers. One reporter said, quote, "You will be amazed to see what has risen from the floor of Deer Valley. A thrilling new outline pierces the sky, demonstrating the shape of things to come in a manner which shows a desire for the finest. It's a beautiful addition to our valley, one that we can point to with pride," end quote. So it was that Turf Paradise first welcomed fans some 70 years ago. And even though there have been concerns over the last couple of seasons that the track might be sold and racing discontinued, a group called Skyfall 7, led by managing partner Gary Hartunian and general manager Tom Lute, obtained an operating permit in December of 2025 and began breathing new life into the track. Track announcer Vic Stauffer told the press that the renewed commitment is intended to make Turf Paradise both an event and a destination. Lute added, "It's about honoring Turf Paradise's remarkable legacy while setting the foundation for the future." Happy 70th anniversary, Turf Paradise. Here's wishing you and your partners in the Phoenix community continued success. Please join us again next week when I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
Nobody weaves a story together like Kurt Becker. My thanks to Kurt for that story. If you missed any of Kurt's Stroll Through Racing History segments, check out the Stroll Through Racing History page on our website, horseracingradio.net, and you can listen to all of those shows. And don't forget, too, about our weekly Brisnet.com call-in show, 6 to 7 Eastern, every Thursday with Bobby Neuman and James Scully. It is your chance to call in and talk racing with our experts. Every Thursday, 6 to 7 Eastern, here on HRRN. Coming up next, I Ask, They Answer with Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
You're listening to HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
a Keeneland session topper from the first crop of the all-conquering Vekoma. Jonathan's Way was touted by purchaser John Moynihan as, quote, one of the best-looking horses you'll ever lay your eyes on. Out of an undefeated stakes-winning juvenile daughter of Indian Charlie, Jonathan's Way is a complete outcross through his first 5 generations and comes from the immediate female family of the great Dynaformer. Brilliantly talented with the pedigree and physical makeup to be commercial dynamite. Jonathan's Way, a future stallion star standing at Airdrie Stud. Think about it.
This is I Ask, They Answer on the Equine Forum on HRRN.
White Barrio makes his move now, and he's up to confront Disco Time, who's toward the rail. They pass the quarter-mile mark, and on the outside, White Barrio has taken the lead. In between horses, Full Sereno tries to go with him. Disco Time puts up the white flag, and they're off the turn. They're in the stretch drive, and White Barrio has the lead with 1/8 of a mile to get. Skippy's coming now. Here comes Skippy Longstocking running at his stablemate. Skippy Longstocking rolling down the center, and Skippy's got it won. It's an upset in Pegasus 10. It's Skippy Longstocking and local boy Tyler Gaffleone for the money. White Barrio completes the Safi Joseph Jr. exacta. Third is Full Sereno in 1:48.2.
What a call by Pete Aiello in his 4th attempt. Skippy Longstocking conquered the Pegasus World Cup and now finds himself the number 2 ranked thoroughbred in the first NTRA poll of 2026. Dale and Tim share their thoughts on the top 10 list as we debate whether the rankings are too high, too low, or just right. Plus, how concerning is the delay of the Southwest Stakes for Derby hopefuls based at Oaklawn Park? And with the news of Ted Noffey being sent to the sidelines, which horse now takes over the top spots on the list of Kentucky Derby contenders? All of those topics and much, much more are straight ahead on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf rider Tim Wilkin, all presented by the University of Louisville, Equine Industry Program in the College of Business, and all starting just 30 seconds from right now.
A spark turns into a dream, and your dreams fuel a love that will last a lifetime. Turn your passion into a career with experienced guidance, a thorough study of equine business, as well as opportunities to get your hands dirty and put your mind to work. Located in the heart of horse country, let your passion fuel your profession at the U of L Equine Industry Program. Apply today.
All right, guys, plenty of things to get to on a very busy Saturday morning here on I Ask, They Answer. But I want to start with the news that came out Thursday afternoon. Ted Noffey, the juvenile champion who looked fantastic as a 2-year-old. Everybody was anxious to see how he was going to come back as a 3-year-old. We won't get the chance until later this season. He has been sidelined for the next 3 months or so. Todd Pletcher saying he'll be off until right around early May, which will knock him off the Triple Crown trail. Tim Wilkin, disappointing news. Who can we look for now as being a leader in this division?
Well, obviously, Ted Noffey was head and shoulders above everyone else, you know, with everything he did as a 2-year-old. And you know, it's sad that you feel bad for the Spendthrift people. You feel bad for Todd. You feel bad for John Velasquez. They'll get over it because this horse, they're hoping that he'll be back for a summer campaign in Saratoga. I think they said he might get him back in training in May. But obviously that leaves a big, big, big hole as we head into, you know, the Triple Crown. I mean, there's horses that will have to step up now, and the top spot is theirs for the taking. I mean, you got horses like Further Ado for Brad Cox, who won the Kentucky Jockey Club. You got Paladin for Chad Brown, who won the Remsen. I mean, Napoleon Solo, who has been dominant in both of his starts. We haven't seen him since the Champagne. I mean, I think he's going to get a lot of attention as he heads to this his 3-year-old campaign. And then there, you know, you look and see what Baffert has. He has Brandt, Litmus Test. God knows how many others that might just come out of the woodwork. And hey, we might not have even seen the horse that's going to win the Derby yet. I mean, it's really early. It's sad it's too bad for the connections of Ted Noffey. But it's going to make this Derby, which a lot of people didn't think was wide open because of Ted Naufy. It's going to make it very wide open now, I would think.
Yeah, and some talented runners in the Holy Bull Stakes at Gulfstream this afternoon with horses like Cannoneer for Brad Cox, Nearly for Todd Pletcher, and it looks like Todd is going to have a few other horses that are going to be heard from as we make our way down toward the first Saturday in May. Incredible for Riley Mott, another one. Dale, I guess, is Project Ace now the horse to beat?
I think so. I think his running style makes him the horse to beat. It is a sad thing when you have a horse like that falls off the Derby trail, but they got to be happy for what they had. They won the Breeders' Cup at champion 2-year-old. It just shows you again how tough it is to win the Breeders' Cup Classic and go on to win the Kentucky Derby. When we see it year after year, it's not like it's a surprise. And it's I don't know who to say is at the top of the class, but I think it's wide open now. I think it's going to be interesting to watch this next round of prep races. And as we always say, the last two rounds are really the most important, where the horses really step up. But it's wide open, and Project Ace right there in the hunt if he runs big today.
Dale, we have a question from Shane in North Carolina later in the program, but a second part of his question is he wants to know more about Project Ace and what you're seeing from him that leads you to believe he fits in a race like the Holy Bull.
The biggest thing is his running style. He's got great stamina. You know, and numbers-wise, those other horses look better, but I've had a lot of horses like him that the further you go, the stronger they get, and they never get tired. And he'll be running at the end. You know, whether they go fast enough up front and he can catch them, we would hope so. But I've had a lot of horses over the years that come from way out of it that want to go long, and they usually hit the board a lot, and then when the right scenario comes up, sort of like Key Nice, when the right scenario came up, they went too fast early, he gets all the money.
Do you remind you of any horses that you've had before?
I would think Key Nice right now, he's not as big and strong as Key Nice was, but just a freight train that just keeps on going. And like I said, even in the mornings working, while I was working him in company as a young horse, he wasn't beating horses, but he was 10 in front when they turned down the backside galloping out. And that's the way his running style's been. And sometimes you catch the right scenarios, like I said, they can jump up and beat good horses.
We'll talk more about the Holy Bull later in the show, but I want to move on to the next topic, and this one involves the NTRA Top Thoroughbred Poll, the first one of 2026, which came out this week. And, guys, I'm going to call this little game Too High, Too Low, or Just Right. And I'm going to ask you about the horses that are in the top 10 and where they're ranked, and you can tell me if you think that ranking is too high, too low, or just right. And we know that reigning horse of the year Sovereignty, who debuts in the top spot, is probably where he belongs, considering that he's the reigning horse of the year and that he's the champ. Nobody could beat him. So we'll leave Sovereignty on top. How about Skippy Longstocky? He is just behind him in the number 2 ranked position, and that makes him the number 2 ranked thoroughbred in training according to the pollsters. Is that ranking too high, too low, or just right, Tim Wilkin?
Well, I vote on this, and I put Skippy at number 5, so I think obviously number 2 is too high. Skippy surprised everybody when he won the Pegasus at 21-1. That was his first grade 1 ever in his 12th try. He's a nice horse. He tries hard, believe me. But to say that he's the second best horse in training, I just think is wrong. So I think he's too high.
Since we got 10 of them, I'll be short and sweet. Brevity's king. I'll say too high.
All right, Skippy Longstocky too high. I tend to agree. I think that's a touch too high, being number 2. It's kind of like, what have you done for me lately? He had that huge win, but you look at his whole resume, I think to say he's ahead of some of the other horses we're going to talk about is a bit of a stretch. The remainder of the top 5 in this poll is rounded out by last year's Preakness and Haskell winner, Journalism at number 3. Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner, Nisos at number 4, and Breeders' Cup Classic winner, Forever Young at number 5. Which of those rankings are too high, too low, or just right, Timmy?
Well, I don't have Forever Young in there at all because I don't vote for horses that only have the one start in the U.S., so I disqualify him. I mean, I think they're, that's just the way it is for me. I don't have him in my rankings at all. And, the thing, Mike, with this poll, just about half the horses haven't even had to start yet this year. It's all on the past, what they've done in the past. Obviously, journalism was the second best 3-year-old in training last year behind Sovereignty. So of course he's going to get a lot of backing as well as NISO. So I mean, it's more like a popularity contest than anything else. I mean, you got to. This poll really doesn't mean a lot to me until they all start running. So I would say journalism fit is about right where he is. NISO is right where he is, and I don't have Forever Young in my top 10 at all. So I think he's wrong.
I put Forever Young third and dropped the other two to 4 and 5. I think NISO, journalism 4, NISO's 5. I like Forever Young. He's been here enough times that we can call him a world horse.
I don't agree.
Dale, if you, I know you don't vote in this like Timmy does, but if you were putting this list together and you did have a vote, would you have Forever Young ahead of Skippy Longstocking?
Probably. I'd probably have him up to 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd probably have him 2, journalism 3, NISO's 4, 55.
Mm-hmm. Well, how about the bottom half of the top 10? White Barrio at 6. You have champion sprinter Bookham Dano at 7. Test Score, who is ranked 8th. Knightsbridge at 9, and then the champion filly Nitrogen at number 10. Some interesting horses in that bottom half of the top 10. Timmy, which of those rankings do you find to be too high, too low, or just right?
I have White Barrio at 6, so I think he's just right. I had Nitrogen at 8. I had Bookham Dano at 9, and the other ones I didn't even put in. So I don't think they both. Looking over it again, maybe I should have put those in, because they both had pretty good races. But I didn't. So there's a couple horses in there that we'll probably get to that I have in there. But as far as the ones you just mentioned, White Barrio, Nitrogen, and Bookham are the only ones I have in my top 10.
Yeah, with that 5, I'm going to say they're just right. And with that being said, you could shuffle them around, and I would say they're just right. they're all close enough. So, I mean, if you're number 6 or number 10, you can switch them back and forth, all 5 horses in different rankings, and they'd still be just right. They're all close.
Listen, we see this in polls in other sports too, right? And, the college football, college basketball, whatever it might be. And I never put a lot of stock into these. This is like a preseason poll, right, Timmy? You talked about the fact that a lot of these horses haven't even run. This is very much a preseason poll. This is going to change dramatically between now and, let's say, the first Saturday in May or the first Saturday in August. This will look completely different.
Well, yeah. I mean, last year's the first poll came out after Pegasus White Barrio was the number 1 horse in the land because he blew away the field in the Pegasus, deservedly so. And he wasn't anywhere near that at the end. So exactly right. You gotta sort this out after these horses start running some more. And, it's I guess it's good for people that follow these things to give them something to talk about, but I can't put a whole lot of stock in it. It's kind of like, preseason rankings in college basketball, different leagues. People like to talk about it, but the people that are like the coaches that have teams and they don't even look at these polls. So
Hell, it gave us a topic on the show this morning, so there you go.
I'm not saying it's worth talking about, but I just don't think a lot of people in the game really pay it a lot of mind.
Hey, which horse not in the top 10 is the biggest snub, Timmy? Which horse should be in there?
Well, I had Baeza at number 4. I mean, I think he's going to be primed to have a pretty decent campaign this year for John Sheriff's. I was surprised that he didn't make the top 10. And I also had Antiquarian in my top 10 at number 10. He's for Todd. He's that horse. I think is going to make some noise this year. So I think he could have been in there in magnitude as well. So there's 3 of them there, but Baez I had pretty high at number 4. So I think that was the biggest snub.
Dale, I know how much you love these polls. You want to keep talking about this, or you want to move on?
I think it's a bad. Polls are bad. There's no reason for them, and it's a bad topic. Move on.
All right. Well, that brings us to our friend Nick Zito, and you get to tell me if the following statement is right or wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
And this one comes from Tom in St. Louis. He says the fourth time was the charm for 7-year-old Skippy Longstocking as he defeated his stablemate White Barrio and everybody else in last Saturday's Pegasus World Cup. Tom thinks it would be cool to see these old quote-unquote war horses recognized with a race possibly on Breeders' Cup Day or Claiming Crown Day that would be for horses, say, 6 and up to celebrate the veteran runners of our sport who still love what they do. Guys, do you like the idea? Is Tom right or wrong with this one?
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right?
Dale, what do you think? You like that idea?
No, it's a great idea if you could find enough horses 6 or older that could make a competitive field, a big enough field. I just don't think they're out there. You know, that's why it's so rare and that's why it's so interesting is that there's so few of them. You know, could you come up with 10 of them and make a nice field of horses that could all compete against one another? I don't think they're out there.
Yeah, it would be a great addition to a Breeders' Cup undercard or even a Claiming Crown Day or maybe even another big day.
If you had the horses.
Yeah, you don't want to have a field of 4.
No.
And, you know, if you have a horse, like let's say, for argument's sake, Skippy Longstocking, you know, stays together this year and, you know, has a pretty decent year. He's not going to be, he wouldn't be going into a race like that. He'd be going into a race for the big money. So, you know, I think that, yeah, it's a neat idea. It's a neat way to celebrate the old timers. But like as Dale said, I don't think there's enough of them that you could do it. It's because if you're still good, you're going to run in the bigger races.
Guys, do you think it would be a good idea for racing to somehow incentivize owners to keep their horses in training longer? And I'm not talking about a designated race like we just discussed, but just in general, to keep their horses around a bit longer, to bring them back at 5 and 6 years old, assuming that they are healthy and happy. Dale, do you like that idea? Should racing be doing more?
You're never going to get the big ones because there's just too much money to be made as a stallion. You can't even pay the insurance on them if you want them all. But I think we've done a pretty good job with the horses that are on the fringe. Not going to be a big stallion already with the World Cup, with the Pegasus World Cup, Dubai World Cup, the Saudi Cup, the Breeders' Cup, and then the $1 million race was sprinkled on in. You can look at a horse that's going to come out for a $10,000 stud fee, keep him around an extra year or two because there is enough money out there.
Interesting idea, and we really appreciate the question. We have another question coming up here with our next topic that comes from Shane in North Carolina. Dale, I mentioned earlier that he wanted to know about Project Ace and how he was doing coming into the Holy Bull. He also wants to know if this is the year that we see a horse come out of the Holy Bull and wear the roses on the first Saturday in May. The only horse to do it has been Barbaro in 2006 and Gopher Gin, who did it in 94, but the race was known as the Preview Stakes at that time. Timmy, is this the year that we see a horse come out and come from the Holy Bull and win the Kentucky Derby?
You know, you could say sure, why not? You could also say no way. You know, the Holy Bull is, one of the first legs of the road to the Triple Crown in Florida. You know, you go from there, you go to the Fountain Youth, and you go to the Florida Derby. You know, last year Burnham Square won this race. Then he won the Bluegrass. Then he went and finished 6th in the Derby. Tapan Street was 2nd in the race, won the Florida Derby. Fierceness has been in this race. White Barrio's been in this race. Mo Donegal's been in this race. He went on to win the Belmont. You know, you're going to have horses, good horses that run in the Holy Bull and will go on and do some pretty good things. Since 1980, 51 horses have run in the Derby that ran in the Holy Bull. And other than the ones you guys talked about, I mean, Funny Side finished, I think, 5th in the Holy Bull, and he won the Kentucky Derby. Tis the Law, you know, he was in this race in 2020, won the Holy Bull, and then he was 2nd in the Kentucky Derby, even though that was the year of the COVID, and it was, you know, the race wasn't held until September. But, it was just a great training job by Barkley Tagg, who was able to keep that horse together that long. But, you don't think of Kentucky Derby winners from the Holy Bull like you do in the Florida Derby or the Bluegrass. But, it's an important race because it's a step towards the Kentucky Derby. And you're going to have horses that come out of this race and they'll move on to the next step. And then hopefully they go on to the next step, the Florida Derby. So I think the Holy Bull is still going to be a very important race.
Dale, sorry that Timmy stole your thunder with all that research.
I got wore out listening to him. But somebody has to do the research. It's none of these earlier preps are going to show you, because the cone gets smaller as you get closer, and the horses that come out of the last couple of rounds are the ones that are going to be really prime going. And it's harder to keep a horse together from this point all the way to May than it is from Florida Derby to the Kentucky Derby. But with that being said, it's a good field of horses. And it wouldn't be surprising at all if one came out of here and it was an impact in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, it's a solid field. All right, 2 topics left to get to. We have our final point of the week. We have about 5 minutes to do all of this, guys, so we're going to boogie through these next couple. Winter weather continuing to wreak havoc with racing schedules, in particular at Oak Lawn Park in Hot Springs, Arkansas, where they've been forced to cancel this weekend's cards, which means the Southwest Stakes, a Kentucky Derby points race, is now going to be run this coming Friday. Dale, you've had to deal with these things over the years. If you're a Derby hopeful taking the Oak Lawn route, is this delay significant or nothing to worry about?
I don't think it's too much to worry about. I think they'll be all right. And, we had these problems last year, and it's just tough. Winter racing's tough. There aren't a lot of good options. I mean, we get good weather here in Florida. We get good weather at Santa Anita. Fairgrounds can be hit or miss with rain, and Oak Lawn's got all weather patterns. New York is really tough. It's been dealt with since the beginning of time, and you'll figure out a way. If you've got a horse that wins the race next Friday, you'll figure out how to get him to the Derby.
Well, with the Southwest being now on next Friday, I mean, if you're going to go to the Rebel after that, it's a 23-day gap rather than 29. Now, I know a lot of horsemen would rather have the time. You have less time. If you have a good horse, they should be able to overcome that. It's been a harsh winter. We haven't had a winter like this in a while. I mean, where it's really affected many parts of the country. I mean, Aqueduct's closed again this weekend because it's so cold in New York. It doesn't happen like this every year. It doesn't. But this year it's just been really brutal. And, it's tough for these horsemen that are based in these areas to, be able to even, let alone race. I mean, just to be able to train their horses, it's a chore. I mean, giving you guys credit for being able to keep your horses fit in weather like this.
Yeah, it's definitely causing a lot of issues if you do have a horse. Look at what's going on at Aqueduct today, Tim, with the cancellation and the Wither Stakes not being run. What do you do now? Now you're set back. If you had your horse pointing for the Withers, now you're set back on schedule there, and you got to find a way to work around it.
You do, and it's God forbid, you hope that it doesn't cause some horses to get off the trail because the schedule is disrupted so much. Because I know they canceled training for a few days back. I think last week because it was so cold.
Yeah,
and it's supposed to be brutally cold. I mean, today and tomorrow it's supposed to be the coldest of the year so far, and it's been pretty darn cold this whole month.
Yeah, missing training's a bigger factor, in my opinion, than it is moving the race for 6 days. I think the more training you miss is a bigger problem.
I mean, you can only do so much in Shed Row, right?
Yeah, that's all. You can't move forward. You can sort of maintain.
All right, guys, we're gonna go on to our final point of the week. We got about 2 minutes left here in the program to wrap things up. So, Timmy, why don't you kick us off? What is your final point of the week on this Saturday morning?
Well, this last week I had to put some names in who I nominate for inclusion on the ballot for the Hall of Fame, my opinion of who should be on this year's ballot. And I put in the names Funny Side, Barkley Tagg, and Richard Migliore. I'm hoping that I think all three are fairly deserving to get into the Hall of Fame, some more than others. But I think it would be great to see all three of those on the ballot this year.
That would be good. I just want to say that I disrespected White Barrio last week and said he's a non-factor. I was wrong. I think it's the first time ever. But I want to congratulate Safi. I found myself really cheering for White Barrio when he turned for home. I thought that would be really cool for him to go ahead and win, but great job by Safi and great weekend. And Gulfstream Park, they really put on a good show. We knocked these tracks a lot of times. They put on a good show last Saturday.
Yep, well said. Guys, enjoy the weekend and good luck at the races. Dale, go get it done in the Holy Bowl.
All right, fellas, next week.
See you later.
All right, if you have a topic you want to hear Dale and Tim discuss, email that topic to us, Mike@horseracingradio.net. We will do our best to work it into the show going forward. I Ask the Answer is presented by the University of Louisville, Equine Industry Program and the College of Business. I'm back with more, including the answer to this week's impossible trivia question presented by Mojo Racing. That's next on the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
Ladies, are you tired of your men being meh? Are you ready to get their spice back? Mojo Racing Partners has a proven horse trick that'll clear the pipes and take those micro shares to the next level. Believe me, this is a game changer that'll turn rarely into lasting a long time. Go to MojoRacingPartners.com to get his mojo working again.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s. Why should saving for retirement be any different? I mean, they go back to college, learn new instruments, start skateboarding. Whoa! Okay, maybe that one's not for everybody, but saving for retirement is. With aceyourretirement.org, you can get on track with your retirement savings no matter your age. Just have a 3-minute chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach from AARP. You'll get personalized recommendations based on your input that are easy to understand and work with your lifestyle. It's quick, easy, and free. Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back.
Gnarly move, Dad.
Thanks, sweetie. So wherever you are in your retirement savings journey, head to aceyourretirement.org and start chatting with Avo today. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Did you know you might be part of the 75% of Americans who think they waste less food than they actually do? Americans toss out more than $382 billion worth of food, costing an average family of 4 nearly $3,000 annually, and costing our planet even more in wasted resources. But did you also know nearly half of all food waste occurs at the household level, which means there's a lot we can do to reduce all this waste, to help your wallet and the planet. Eating leftovers is great, but things like freezing food that you can't eat right away, donating surplus food within your community, and better understanding food date labels can have an even bigger impact. To learn more, visit World Wildlife Fund at wwf.earth/food waste and spread the word that food should never be trash.
Want to get the latest HRRN content directly on your computer or mobile device? Then subscribe to our podcast using the Podbean app or Apple Podcasts. Just go to hrrn.podbean.com on your computer and click follow, or download the Podbean app and search HRRN. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and listen to our latest episodes anytime. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our podcasts today. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Well, Into Mischief does it again as the leading sire, and he is featured on the cover of the February issue of Blood Horse, which is out now. The issue also includes Behind the Dixiana Broodmare Band breedings, all-weather racing coming to New York this fall, a Market Watch freshman sire preview, and much, much more. You can become a subscriber for exclusive content for as little as $59 a year, or purchase a single issue at bloodhorse.com. Well, I gave you what I think is a challenging, impossible trivia question. Lee Delapina has the answer for you right now.
Thank you, Mike. In 1919, Sir Barton won the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness Stakes, and then went on to win the Withers before winning the Belmont and completing the Triple Crown. What other horse accomplished this feat? Well, that, of course, was Count Fleet in 1943. Thanks to Mojo Racing Partners for this week's Impossible Trivia question. Get your mojo working at mojoracingpartners.com.
You know, we were talking with Dale and Tim in that final segment. I asked the answer about the new leader in the 3-year-old division now with Ted Noffey being sidelined. And I think you look toward Florida right now. Because of the weather and seeing that horses aren't missing training time, seeing, as Dale said, he thinks missing training time is more critical to a 3-year-old making their way down the road to the Kentucky Derby than missing a prep race. And the horses in Florida have been able to take advantage of good weather and stay in training. And today's Holy Bull Stakes has some really talented runners in it. Incredible. We're going to find out more about him. We're going to find out about Cannoneer. Nearly has to answer the 2-turn question. Hasn't done that yet, but he's been pretty good. You have Commandment, who won the Mucho Macho Man. I think if you're looking toward the horses to beat in the Kentucky Derby right now, you have to look toward those horses based in South Florida. All right, my thanks to all of our guests for making this show possible, including Riley Mott, the trainer of Incredible, whom we heard from earlier in the program. Got a chance to hear from Dale and Tim, as I just mentioned. Kurt Becker for a Stroll Through Racing History, and Ashley Anderson with the TwinSpires Triple Play. If you missed any portion, check out the podcast on our website and your favorite podcast platform. My thanks to Lee Delapina in our Lexington studios, Chauncey for handling social media. I'm Mike Penna. Thanks for listening. Go Steelers.